Welcome to a new guide on this channel, and on this occasion is the Roland SH-4D. This is not a review, it's a complete deep dive guide about this device. Everything on this guide is in chapters, so if you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. Now, if you like this, please like and subscribe, and if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, you can check the links at the description. Alright, so first we need to dominate how to change patterns, banks, and the different parts that we have available on this device. So you have 8 banks and 16 patterns each. So by going to the pattern button right here, when you tap it, you enter into the, this screen, but you also get a view of the different patterns. So if I start playing something, I'm playing the first pattern of the first bank. And you can just maybe select a different pattern from here when this button is enabled. So if I go here, it's going to be queuing to the next pattern. Maybe the pattern number 2 could be maybe a different pattern. Now remember that you can do 8 banks, right? 16 on each bank. So by going to the page and the tie, holding it, you can change the different banks. So you have 8. Maybe I want to go to the bank number 2. When you release the page tie, now we are extending into the pattern number 1 of the bank number 2. Now, when you're doing this, you're changing banks and patterns. Right here on this screen, it's going to tell you what you're doing. What is your current pattern and your next, if you want to queue to the next one. Right now we are standing on the bank number 2 and the pattern number 1. But maybe I'm going to be queuing to the, pattern bank number 2, pattern number 2. It's going to do that. It's going to await until the pattern is done, the first one is done, and then it's going to queue to the next one if you're playing back. If I do the same, now it's going to queue to the number 4. Depends on the pattern, it might take, a little while. Now, if I play it back again, we are standing on the bank number 2 and the pattern number 4. If I hold the page and the tie, I can still see the 8 banks. So maybe I want to go to the bank number 1, and we are still standing on the pattern mode. I'm going to be going back to pattern number 1 of bank number 1. Alright, so when we are standing on a pattern and we are playing back, you get this screen, and this one will tell you a lot of information about your pattern. The pattern is 72, BPMs, bits per minute. So, you have a visual information right here. You can change the BPM from the knob number 1, and this is going to be the knob 1 and the knob 2. We can do different things with them. And maybe I want to go up in tempo. You can do that. Now, then you have your faders. So your faders will control the volume for the different parts that you have on your pattern. So you have 5 different parts, the number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and these ones are the melodic parts. Then you have the rhythm part, which is going to be the drum part. So if I play this back, with this we can control the volumes. If I go down, down, and down, we are just going down on the volume of all, the melodic parts. But the rhythm one, stays up, and it's because this is the control for the drum part. If I go down, we get complete silence. And just like, from here, we can just manage the volumes of the different parts. And if the volume is too low, right here you have your global volume, right? You can adjust it from there. Alright, so super simple. You go down, you go up on the faders, and you adjust the levels. So the knob number 1 is going to be the tempo, we already know that. But the knob number 2 is going to be the select, and this lets you select a different pattern and then maybe cue to that different pattern. Notice that I'm just changing patterns. Maybe it's a bank number 1, pattern number 14, let's say. And notice that it's not changing until you press enter. When you do so, then it's going to start queuing. If not, it just will not do it. You need to select it first and then press enter to queue to the next one. That's how it works. Now also when you're playing back and you are doing shift and you move this knob, it's gonna let you change the banks. Notice that I'm holding the shift, it's letting me change the different banks, 8, and then so on and so on and so on. So you can still do it by scrolling, but maybe you're standing on the bank number 1 and you want to get to the bank number 8 and you need to scroll. Well, you don't need to. You just need to do shift, go to the 8 or the 1, and then just load whatever pattern that you want. Alright. So it's just pretty simple, queuing and selecting different banks and patterns. Now I'm going to be playing it back. Now if I go again to this one, we know that we are queuing from the one that it's playing back, which is the pattern number 1, and we want to queue it to the number 10. Now if we are not playing back, this will just, change the current pattern that you are just, currently playing. So if I just move it without playing it back, it's just going to be playing that pattern. So you need to, bear this in mind because it's a little bit different. Also, if you're not queuing to a pattern, when you go to the enter, it's going to take you to a different screen. Now, this is going to be the pattern browser. Now, once you're standing right here, what this can do, if I'm playing back, is going to let you find the patterns on a different way, You get the name of the patterns and then the location, the bank and the pattern number. Now, there's a difference between this mode and the other mode. Now, on this mode, when you're playing back, we are just playing back whatever pattern, and then you select a different one, it's going to load it. It's not going to wait for you to do enter to load it. You just change it, and then it's going to go and load that pattern. It's going to queue to that one. Now, if you're not playing back, you can just, remove it, press start, and then maybe go to a different pattern, and it's still going to load the pattern, but in this case, you're not playing it back. So you need to remember again that on this screen, if you change it, or you do something with this knob, with the knob number 2, for example, it's going to be changing the pattern. So the knob number 2 will just scroll through the different patterns. I'm going to do some playing. It's going to be loading the 17, 18. Now this one is going to take you to the next bank. So if you're standing on 28, it's going to play, just that. It's going to queue to that one. And if I change it to the next bank, it's going to be 38, and it's going to be playing that one. There's nothing on that one. So maybe I can go to the 11, right? So all of this, all of these tricks is something that you need to remember, especially if you want to really master the queuing. Now, when you do enter, it's going to get out of that screen and it's going to take you back to this screen. So when I play it, if I play it back, we're standing on the, pattern number 1 of bank number 1. Now, each pattern has 5 different parts. We can have, already talked about this. The part 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are going to be melodic, and the rhythm one is the last track, and this one is going to be the drums. So you're going to be, when you're working on a pattern, you're playing a pattern, you're always standing on a part, right, on a tone. So how do you know that? Well, if you go to shift, it's going to let you know or select the different parts. So right now we are standing on the pattern number 1, on the part number 1. And you already always know where you're standing with the number right here at the top. So if I do shift and I do go to the 2, now I am standing on the tone or the part number 2, which is, it's going to be a synthesizer of this pattern. If I stand on the number 1, it's going to be a different sound. And if I maybe go to the part number 4, this is going to be again just a different sound. And if I go to the rhythm one, it's going to be the drums. So by doing shift, you select the different parts you want to work with. All right, so I'm going to go to a different pattern. I'm going to be, playing something else. So when you're standing on a pattern, maybe you just want to, maybe get out of this screen and you want to clear the whole pattern so you can start again. You can start building your own patterns. So you can do, 2 things. You can go to patterns and then you can go to the bank and select one of the banks where, you have no other pattern saved. You have a default preset factory pattern. That's one way of doing this. Or maybe if you are standing on a pattern that already has something and you want to clear everything, you can do it with the shift, and then right here you have the init. So this is going to be initting, it's going to init whatever it is that you're doing. Now, if you do shift and init and you're standing on the pattern, you have the pattern button on, this will init the pattern and it's going to say initialize pattern. Are you sure? Doing enter, you can confirm or exit to get out. In this case, I'm going to do so. I'm going to do enter and it's going to clear everything. We have no information, nothing. And if I maybe go to the sound number 1, the part number 1, we have the default sound and the rhythm, which is going to be the default kit. So you can start working on your own patterns. Now, still remember that you never erase a pattern until you save it. So if I change patterns, maybe I go to the 6 and then I go back to the number 5, which, it was the one we had from before. I'm just never, erasing that pattern. So always when you start a new pattern from the fresh, from the start, or you change or you modify something, you just need to remember to save it. If not, you're going to lose it as soon as you change patterns or you do something else. Right, so I'm going to be standing, on pattern number 6 of the bank number 1, and if I play it back, we have something like this. So when we are standing on this screen, we know that this can modify the tempo, but that's it. You don't have dedicated controls for the tempo on the panel. Now you need to access to a screen. So if I go to shift and I hold it, and you read right here at the bottom, the 11 is going to be the tempo. So by going there, it's going to take you to, the main tempo menu. So on this screen, it lets you with the knob number 2 adjust the tempo pretty easily. And the other thing that you can do, which is the important part of this section, is that you can do shuffle. Now notice it says offset. And in this one, if I go up, notice that we get that shuffle. Right? If I go all the way down, we can do, pause negatively. We can go negatively. If I go back to the beginning, to the center, we get no shuffle at all. So this is like the global shuffle. So each track, each part has its own shuffle configuration on each of the, the patterns for each part. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But this one is the offset. So if on the part number 1, you're doing 30% shuffle, and on this one, you're doing 60, and on this one, you're doing nothing. When you go to the offset, this is going to be offsetting whatever you have right here. It will not force whatever shuffle that you set right here to be, the final shuffle for all your tracks. It's going to offset whatever you have on the individual tracks. That's why it says offset, right? So this is something that you need to be aware of. Okay, so let's talk about the mutes and the mixer that you have available on this device. I'm going to be doing some playing, and I'm standing on the pattern number 6 of the bank number 1, if you, want to play the same sound. And by doing exit, remember you can exit that screen. So we have some mutes, and these are really useful, especially when creating patterns and performing. So if you hold the pattern, I'm going to be playing, pressing and holding, it lets you access the mutes. So these are going to be the mutes for the part number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the rhythm part. So if I mute this, and this, you're just pretty much muting the whole thing. Now maybe I want the drums back. And as I'm holding the pattern in order to do this, maybe I just want to bring the part number 1 and the 3, and so on, and so on, and so on. Right, so, the mutes. This is something very simple, very standard with this, type of devices. Notice that right here below, you have access to the different, buttons. So these ones are going to be the mutes for the rhythm part. For now, I'm just going to mute everything. I'm just going to keep the rhythm part. So this one is going to be maybe a sound that it's part of the kit. And if we tap them, we're going to be muting the different parts. So maybe we can, create different variations with this. Just muting the rhythm part. Super simple. You just can mute the individual tones and then the rhythm as a whole, or just the parts that belong to the rhythm parts, to the rhythm section. Right. Now you also have access to a mixer view, and you can do all of this, the mutes, a little bit more, just let's say easily. I'm going to be accessing the pattern. I'm standing on the pattern, and now I'm going to be pressing the sound. Notice this one is blinking. So this one is going to take you to the mixer. So when you're standing on the mixer, it gives you the mutes right here for the different parts and the mutes for the rhythm part. So if I wanted to, I just can mute everything and just mute the rhythm part. And this is just, it's going to work without me, holding the pattern. Which sometimes, using one hand to do something very simple, it sucks. So by going to the mixer, you just can, you get it. Right. Now the thing is that the mixer gives you a bunch of other things. So the mixer, besides giving you the mutes right here, it gives you access to control the volume for the different tracks. And remember, you have 4 and then the rhythm one. So by using the faders, you can adjust the different levels for the different tracks. Maybe I'm gonna go down on the 1, 2, and 3, and I just keep the 4 and the rhythm one. So if I go down on this one, it's going to be the number 4. How can I go down on the rhythm one? Remember, it's going to be the timbre. By going down, I just can go down on that one. So we can control this from the, from the faders. Pretty simple. Still, you can go to this knob and you can control with this knob, with the number 2. And it's just a little bit more specific. Notice that right there, we get the values. So it's a lot more controllable than just going, through the fader. So you can just fine tune it from here. Right, so this one is going to be selecting the parts on that tone. You can still do it with your arrows. If I go down, I can go up and down in that tone, and if I want to go to the next one, with this one you can go to the different tones. Also notice that when I'm moving, these buttons, they light up. It's because this lets you go to that tone directly, lets you stand on that tone directly. Right, so I'm standing on the tone number 1, I'm gonna be playing this back. I know that I can control it from, from here, but maybe I'm gonna be going with this to the panning, and with the knob number 2 we can control the panning. How much reverb I want to send on this from this tone, this part, I can do it from here. Same thing with the chorus, same thing with the delay. Now one thing that sucks is that you need to scroll to get it to work. Now still, you can do it with the global controls. Let me just go down on all of them. So I'm gonna be again going to this one, and I'm gonna go all the way down. We're standing on the reverb, chorus, and delay of the tone number 1. So right here you have your effects section, and this control is going to decide how much you're gonna be sending. So you have your reverb, chorus, delay, and then you have your tone. We're gonna talk about this later. But if I'm standing on that track, on that tone, on that part, in this case, I'm gonna be going to reverb, and by using this control, it's gonna let you control it a little bit better without scrolling. Right? It's just a lot easier. Now, if I go to the chorus one, which is the next one in the list, I'm gonna go there and just, we're standing in the chorus one, so we can, do this a little bit more easily without, going here and just scrolling. So, if you're standing on maybe this track, now this controls will just control whatever track or tone or part where you're standing. Alright, so pretty simple. So there's a tricky part right here. The rhythm part, you can go manually there, and you can adjust how much reverb and how much chorus and how much delay you're sending, The thing is that the rhythm part has a lot of instruments, and each of the instruments can send a certain amount of reverb or signal, to the reverb or chorus or delay. So by default, this is going to be all the way up, and it should be all the way up, because you're going to be managing how much chorus you're going to be sending through the different parts. And we are going to be talking about that, much later when we talk about the rhythm part that we have available. But this is a nice way of controlling this in a more global fashion. So depends on how much you're sending from your, each individual instrument. From here, you can just, do a little bit less and just control it a little bit better from here. It's like a global control, a global mix or send. Right? But it's like an offset. Now, once you're done on this screen, it doesn't matter if you're playing it back, you can do exit. It's going to take you back to the next screen. If you're standing in pattern, of course you get that screen, but you can exit and get out of the pattern mode. Alright, so now that we know how to navigate the patterns, banks, and how to access the mixers and control the volumes and, and the sends and everything else, now we can start talking about the tones, which is, one of the essential parts of this device, because this is how you create sounds. So you have 1, 2, and 3, and 4. These ones are your melodic ones, and again, this one is the percussive one. So I'm going to do shift, and I'm going to go to init, and I'm going to stand on pattern first. I'm going to do shift and do init to create or restart a pattern. I'm going to initialize the pattern. So I'm starting with the, the default pattern. So if I do shift, you can select the part number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and even the rhythm one. So I'm going to be standing on the part number 1. So once you do so, you're going to be getting your default preset. I'm going to be going up in volume for now. But this is the default sound that you get on the part number 1 in this case. So how this works is that when you're standing on a part, you need to select one of the different models that you have available to create sounds. So you have 12 oscillator models, they're tones. So when you go to the model right here, it's going to let you change to the different tones, and you have again 12. Now, so this is quite a lot because we have a lot of them, and all of them they do different things, and the controls are different for all of them. I've created a different video talking about each OSC model, going one by one and explaining how they work. Check the cards or the links at the description. The link is going to be there. And if it's not there, it's because that video was not yet released, but it will be in a couple of days. So with this knob, with the model, when you're standing again on a part, you just can select your OSC model. So the first one is going to be the SH-4D, which is going to be 4 oscillators. The 3D is going to be 3 oscillators and an LFO. Then you have your sync, which is going to be a sync oscillator. Then the SH-101, which is an emulation of the, Holy Grail synthesizer. Then an emulation of the Juno, you already know this one. Now, the next one is going to be an FM take of an oscillator. So then you have a ring, which is, pretty cool. And again, all of them just work very differently. For example, on this one, each fader is going to control different parts of this. But if I change it to a different model, they do different things. They control different params. Even the buttons and these knobs and the knobs that you have right here, they can control different params on each, different oscillator model. Now, if I keep going up, you are going to be finding the ring, which is, again, a ring-based oscillator. And you have a very simple wavetable, a quart oscillator. So you get a drawing, which is, you can move to a step. You have 32 steps on this waveform, and then you just can design your own oscillator, your own waveform. Just like that. It's just very simple. Now, then you have your PCM. This is going to be the last one. And on this one, you have 4 layers, and you can select different sounds for each of the layers, and then you just make a blend with the different parts. So again, I'm not going to go through all of this on this video. Check the links at the description and you will find a dedicated video for just for this. Now, still, when you're standing in a tone, it doesn't matter what you have right here. You can access to the presets and just, use the presets. So again, when you're standing in a tone, you need to go to the sound. You press the sound and it's going to take you to the preset browser. So when you're standing right here, you can do 2 things. You can search presets by model, OSC model, or by category. So if I go to this one, I can go through the different categories, and notice it says category. And it's because, we are standing on that one, and we have a lot of different categories, bell, and when you are standing on, something on a patch or preset, you can audition the preset, even if you're playing back the pattern. I'm going to show you in a minute. So maybe I want to search for some bass, and just by standing on that one, you're going to be getting it. So remember, the first way of searching presets is going to be by category. The next one is going to be by model. Maybe I want a bass sound, but I want to use the Juno, let's say. So by going to the sound, it's going to take you to the other, the other way, which is going to be selecting by oscillator model. So maybe, again, I'm going to go back to the Juno, and then I'm going to need to search the presets that we have available for the Juno. So right here, I have just a bass, and so on and so on and so on. So now we are just, searching presets by model and not by category. So when you're standing on the model, per preset browser, it's very simple to know what this preset is all about or what this preset is using because you're standing on the Juno 106. But when you're standing on the category, you just don't really know which model you're using, but you actually do. So if you take a look right here at the beginning of the name, of each preset, it's going to tell you 4D and then the number of the preset. So if it says 4D, it's going to be the 4D oscillator. And if I keep going down, it's going to give you the 3D oscillator. Maybe I'm going to be searching for something else. You have the 4D. Let me find something. So right here, you get presets for the 3D oscillator model. So this one is going to be the FM one. And again, and this one is the PCM. So right here, it will tell you at the beginning the model that it's using, then the number of the presets, and then the preset, and then the name of the preset. Now, one more thing, you can use the knob 1 and 2 to navigate through the different presets. You just don't need to use the arrows. You can do it from here. Now, the thing is that when you're standing on a tone, or a preset in this case, You can audition just by doing that. Now, if I do exit and I get out, I just go back to the model that the preset that I have had from before. So to load the preset, you always need to do enter. If you don't do enter, it's just not gonna do it. So if I maybe go to a pattern, let me just load whatever pattern. I'm gonna be going to the number 7. So we have a default pattern, right? Maybe I'm gonna go down the volume. And I'm gonna be going to maybe the tone number 1. And I'm gonna maybe go down in the volume of everything else. And I'm just standing on the tone number 1, right? So that's how it sounds. Now maybe I just want to audition different presets. You can do so. So you can go to sound, and then when you change this, it's gonna let you audition the same pattern that's just playing behind the scenes. You know, the pattern that you created with the preset. That's really cool, man. And it's very easy to use because you just can choose your favorite oscillator model and just check different presets on the go. Super useful. Now maybe this pattern is just, maybe we need a little bit more information. But, you know, we get it. Now still, if I get out, if I do exit, notice that we are back to the default sound. If you want to load a preset, you're gonna need to do enter in order to load it. Right? Notice that we are back. So I'm gonna be loading that one. So I'm gonna do enter, and once we do so, we are loading or replacing the previous patch with this one. Right. Now always remember that when you change sounds or presets or you do something else to the pattern, if you change patterns, you're gonna lose it, right? So you're just gonna lose whatever it is that you did. And you need to remember, it's something that you need to actively do with this device. You need to make some changes, make sure you save them, and then you just keep moving forward. Right, since now we know a little bit more about the models, let's talk about creating, you know, a whole tone, because a tone or a part, it's a mix of the model that you have right here and then, this section that we have right here. Now still, when you're standing on a pattern, I'm standing on the, the 7 of the bank number 1, that's where I'm standing. If I do shift and I do init, I know that I am restarting or initializing that pattern, right? So this is one way of just, getting back to default so you can start something fresh. Now, if you are standing, maybe I'm going to be going to the same pattern, just reload it. Pattern, if I play it back, we get it back. It's okay, so cool. So now the thing is that I'm going to be getting out of the pattern and I'm going to stop it. And I know that I'm standing on the part number 1. So if I play this, this is going to sound like this. What if I want to initialize this pattern, this tone, this part? So you can do shift by doing the same thing. It's going to tell you, dude, you're standing on the part number 1. You can go to init, and when you do so, it will ask you to initialize, but this time is going to be the tone. Now, it still is going to keep the same model that you were using on that pattern, but it's going to bring everything back to default. So now, we get the same ring, but, we get the default values for this part. So what if you're standing on a rhythm part? So I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be going to shift and I'm going to go back to the rhythm, right? So we are standing on the percussive part. So now when I do shift and I do init, it's going to be a little bit different because remember the rhythm part has a lot of different instruments. So you might want to be resetting one of the instruments, maybe the kick, the snare, or the hat, or maybe the whole drum kit. So right here is going to ask you, what do you want to do? You want to reset the whole kit or the instrument? So if you do enter to the kit, it's going to reinitialize the whole, the drum kit, all the different instruments that you have on the rhythm part. Now, if you did this, you did shift and init while you're standing on some of the parts of that kit, you're going to be able to reinitialize or initialize that instrument, maybe the kick or the snare or the hat. So again, all of this just depends on what you want to do. I'm going to be doing enter and I just reset the kick that I have selected. But again, you can go to shift and init and you can restart the whole kit. And then you just get the default kit that, you get when you initialize the pattern. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the pattern, I'm gonna do shift, and I'm gonna do init, and I'm gonna restart or reinitialize the whole pattern. So we have, nothing. So when I go to maybe the part number 1, I get the default sound that we get for that one. So when you're working on the part, even the rhythm, the model that you're using is just one part of the equation. So this is the oscillators, is what generates the sound, but all of this goes all the way through this section right here. It's just like a, just like a synthesizer. This generates the sound, and then you go through a filter that you have right here. All the oscillators go through a filter. You have a high pass, and at the same time, you have a drive that you can boost it from this knob. So this one is going to be the envelope that will be modulating whatever filter, whatever cutoff that you have selected right here. And then it goes through the amp section, and then you have an LFO section that you can where you can modulate pitch, filter, or the amp. Right, so this again works like a, like a standard synthesizer. You get your sound, you go through your chain right here, and then you just, the sound goes out. Now, if you do have some experience with synthesizers, what I'm going to be explaining right now is going to be maybe super simple, so you can skip it and go maybe to the next section. Now, if you're learning and you still, you're struggling to understand what's going on right here, I'm going to be showing you right now. Okay, so we have some sound. This is going to be the sound that we get by default. Remember that if you want to reinitialize it, you can do shift and init, which is the 10, and then enter, and you're back to default. Now, first you need to select the model, right? What you're going to be working with. So in this case, I'm going to be using the Juno because I'm a Juno type of guy. I like how it sounds, right? So this is the default sound that we get. Now the sound goes out and goes through the filter section. So first you have your cutoff. So if I play something, we have some subtractive synthesis. So you're going to be chopping the high frequencies. Now still, right here, you can select what you're going to be doing. Right now we are just, using a low pass, but you can, change it to a band pass. And right now we have a, you're just using the filter in a different way. Right here is your resonance. For band pass, of course, it's really important to use the resonance. But, all of the different models. We want to do a little bit of resonance. We just go up in the resonance. And we're going to be getting it. Right. So you also have a high pass filter. Now notice that we can do a high pass filter right here, but we can also do it from here. We get it. If I go up on this one, notice that we are just chopping the lower frequencies. Right. So again, this works like a standard synthesizer. Really cool. Now you also have a keyboard control. This is going to be the keyboard control. Notice that I'm holding it, and while I'm just pressing one note and just moving it up and down, it's just affecting how the cutoff is working. So how this works, the keyboard control, you can go, maybe to 50%, to maybe 100. I can go to 200. I'm gonna maybe leave it right there. If there's no keyboard, it doesn't matter which key I'm pressing. The filter is gonna react the same way every time that I play a key. So if I play a low key, it's gonna be the same. Now, so when you move this, right there, it's gonna tell you how much you're doing, right? So you always need to take a look at the screen. So for now, I'm just gonna go all the way down. So how the keyboard control works is that, for example, right now I'm gonna be playing a low key, and I'm gonna be playing a high key. So notice that everything sounds pretty much the same. Now with the keyboard control, it will listen to whatever keys, whatever frequencies that you're playing, and it's going to scale whatever filter, whatever cutoff that you're using right here. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of more cutting. So the lower keys, we can hear them a little bit better, but the higher keys, we cannot because we are chopping a lot of frequencies. So as you go up on the keyboard control, when we play higher frequencies, or higher keys, the filter is going to open a little bit more so we can hear the higher keys, and it's going to open a little bit less for the lower keys. I go all the way down, way different. And I'm using a lot of resonance so we can really hear the difference. Right, so we can really hear the higher keys, and then we get a little bit less for the lower keys. So on this one, and this is something very standard on all synthesizers, you need to find the sweet spot right here, depending on what you want to do. So you also have a drive. This is going to be your drive. I go, all the way down, up. You can really hear the drive. Go down, a little bit more sterile, a little bit more, complex. Right, super cool. Now the good thing is going to be your envelope, and this works just like a normal standard envelope that you get for your filter. So this is going to modulate the filter in some fashion. You can stay on 50%, which is going to be doing nothing right in the middle, but you can modulate it negatively, or you can modulate this positively. So this envelope is going to modulate the cutoff filter. So if you go to the positive side, the envelope will modulate it from here and then go back to the original spot. If you do negatively, it's going to modulate this from here negatively and then back to the original position. So for now, I'm just going to go positively. So I'm going to be doing a lot of, cutoff frequencies. So what I want to do is I want to use the envelope to modulate it, this in some fashion. So when I play a key, this one is going to move up and at some point is going to go down. How? Well, this is going to be the envelope, and I'm going to be going all the way down on what we have right here. So if I play a key now and we have all these controls all the way down, notice that nothing happens. So we need to provide some kind of instruction to modulate this control. The attack is going to be how long it's going to take to go from here and all the way up. So we need to provide some value. And it's going to be how long it's going to take. So notice that it's going up, it's going to take some time. And then at the end, and I'm going to go maybe to a higher key and go up in volume and maybe a little bit of drive. I'm playing a key, it's going up. This is modulating this to this position and then abruptly goes down. So this is because the attack is so slow, but the decay is all the way down. And the decay is going to be how it goes down. So if I add some decay, it's going to go up slowly and then go down slowly. And I'm still pressing the key. Now, all of this is just envelopes 101. If you already know how this works, maybe it's a little bit boring. Maybe you can skip it. So the next one is going to be the sustain. So right now, I'm pressing a key and I'm not releasing, but still, it goes down. So the sustain is going to be where we want to stay if I'm holding a key. If I press and hold, it's going to go up, down, but notice it's not going completely off, it's staying at some point. So the sustain, it's not a time knob. This one is how long it's going to take to go up, how long it's going to take to go down, and this one is where we want to stay. So if I go up in the sustain, notice that we choose where we want to stay if I'm holding a key. Now when I'm releasing the key, it dies instantly. So the release is a time knob, just like the attack and the decay. So I'm going to be doing some release, and I'm going to be doing something like that. We're going to have a problem. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. So I'm going to be playing the key, goes up, it sustains, decays, then sustains, and I'm going to be releasing in 3, 2, 1, and the sound dies instantly. And this is because we have no release on the amp section. So I'm going to need to add some release right here. I'm going to be doing it. I'm going to release it in 3, 2, 1, and notice that now it slowly go down. If I go all the way up on the release, it's just going to be, a little bit more obvious. It's going to be super slow. I'm going to release it, 3, 2, 1, and it goes down, really slowly. Right, so this is how the envelope works. Now, it depends on what you want to do. You want to adjust your params. And all of this depends on what you want to do. You're going to be doing a little bit of drive. You need to adjust your envelopes, again, accordingly. Maybe I'm going to be doing a little bit of attack. Now, if you didn't know how envelopes work, well, now you know. And you can see that we have another, a different envelope on the amp section. Well, this is going to be pretty much the same. So I'm going to do no envelope modulation. I'm going to go all the way to, the middle, to the center. I'm going to be opening this, so we have no envelope modulation. Now then we have this section, which is going to be the amp section. Right now, all the knobs are down, but as soon as I move them, it will just, accept the changes. This one is going to be the level, the gain that is going to go out of your model, of your part. Then you have a pan control. You can go to the left and you can go to the right. I'm going to stay at center. And then remember that the sound goes out of the filter and then goes to the amp, and the amp will decide how the sound goes out. If I go all the way down on these knobs and I go all the way down, just same thing, we did right here. Now I play something, we are going to be getting pretty much nothing because everything is super fast. So we need to provide a little bit of attack. We need to provide a little bit of sustain. Maybe we don't want attack, depends on what you want to do. Maybe a little bit of sustain and a little bit of release. And this is going to decide how the sound goes out of each model. Right? It works just like this envelope. Okay, so that's it. This is the, the combo. You get your oscillator, your main sound source. It goes through a filter, through a drive, a high-pass filter, and then it goes through the amp envelope and the panning. All right, so this was a 101 on envelopes and filters and amps. This is how it works on pretty much all synthesizers. So now you know. And again, when I create these guides, I create them like a course. This is like a course. So I could never guess your level. So, if you already know, you just can simply skip this section. But if you don't know, because maybe you're starting, and now you know how envelopes work. It's just, great. Now then you have an LFO to do some modulation, and you can send some of the sound to the effects. We're going to talk about this much later. Okay, so the LFO section is pretty simple. I'm gonna be maybe going all the way up on the sustain so I can play something and just, get a sustained sound. So you have your LFO, you have your type of LFO, we're going to talk about that in a minute. The rate is going to be how fast the LFO is going to go. You have a fade, you have a pitch, and the filter and the amp. So this is what the LFO can control by default. You can use a matrix that you have right here. We're going to talk about this in a minute, but by default, this is pre-wired or hardwired to modulate a pitch, filter, or the amp level. So if I play something, and I'm gonna be doing some cutting and some resonance right here, doesn't matter much, right? What I want to modulate something with the filter, right? So I'm gonna be going up, and it's gonna start doing it. Now, how fast it goes is going to be the rate. And notice that right there on the screen is gonna let you know how much or how fast you're doing. And right now, it's using divisions. We're gonna talk about this in a minute. Now, you have a fade and a type. First, we're gonna talk about the type. So if I go all the way down, the first, waveform or LFO that you can use is a sine wave. So you have a lot. You have a tri, which is a triangle. You have a saw, which is a saw up. Then we have a saw, but it's going to be an inverted saw. What else? You have a square, on and off. Then you have the random. And as you could guess, it's just a random. Maybe go to a higher key and I'm going to go faster. Again, it's just going to be a random. Now we have some, a little bit more. We have more randoms. So I'm going to be maybe going here, and I'm going to be going to the next one. So the TRP is a trapezoidal wave. The next one is going to be sample and hold. And sample and hold is a type of random, but notice it's just a lot harder than the other one. If I go to the R&D, it's kind of a super smooth. So it is lewd in fashion. Now the sample and hold is up and down, just like that. Then you have a chaos wave, which is going to be pretty much like, I want to say sample and hold, but it's noise. It's modulated with an unpredictable sound source. In this case, it's going to be noise, right? That's why it's chaos. Now the next one is going to be the V sign. Now this one is pretty cool because it's not very standard for all synthesizers. So it's going to be a sine wave. Now the thing is that this one, it changes a little bit when you are using it. So it's an inconsistent sine wave. It's a deformed sine wave, and it changes the amplitude once per cycle. So it's not like the sine wave that we have this one. This is a perfect sine. This one is going to be a little bit, more inconsistent. So if you want to maybe use the Juno and get a more, I would say, original, LFO to an old analog synthesizer, maybe, this one, the V sign is for you. We can modulate the filter. We already know that. I'm gonna go down. What else can we modulate? We can modulate the pitch. If I go up, notice that control goes up as well. And it's something, again, that we can control from here because this one is tied to the pitch. Now, we are going to be talking, I talk about this on a different video, because it's part of how all the different models work. But right here, you just can, modulate pitch and filter at the same time. This is how it works. And the next is going to be the amp. If I play something, I go up in the amp, this is modulating the level up and down. So if you think about this as a tremolo. Now we can go really fast and turn it into something else. Right. So another thing that you get, I'm gonna be doing it with the filter, and I'm gonna go not that fast. Maybe I'm gonna be doing something like that. All right, that's fine. So I'm going up, and I'm going to be using a sine wave, so it's maybe a little bit obvious. So what we can do with the fade is that it's going to fade in the LFO, and this happens as soon as we play it. So right now the fade is all the way down. I'm going to be playing a key. That happens. I'm going to be doing maybe around 60%. I'm going to be playing this, and notice that we don't get it as soon as I play it. It's going to wait a little bit of time and just fade it in. Again, it's just a way of fading the modulation. And this is, because maybe you're just playing something and you don't want the LFO in the way. Even if you do pitch. But as soon as you sustain it, since you're doing some fading, it's going to start modulating. Right? So this is, again, a very simple, very standard option that you get on a lot of synthesizers. You don't get it on all synthesizers, but it's always nice that you get fade. It's very useful. Okay, so all of them are very simple controls. Now we have more configuration options. And for now, I'm just going to go to the filter because it's very easy to hear for now. So on the whole synthesizer, sometimes, depending on where you're standing, you can do a combination of shift and some other key. And it's going to take you to the configuration of whatever it is that, you're trying to do. In this case, if we go to shift, you have an option right here that says LFO. If I go to the LFO, it is going to take us to the configuration of the LFO. So what can you do right here? So remember that when we all use the rate, all of this is just going in divisions. It's because we are syncing to the BPM, and that's the rate sync. It's going to be on by default. But we can go to the knob number 2 and we can disable this. And now the rate is going to be, just values or milliseconds. In this case, I guess it's values. Right? So then you have your key trigger. Now the key trigger, again, is something that maybe if you have some experience, you already know what it is. I'm going to be playing a key. Maybe I'm going to go slower than that, something like that. The key trigger is going to restart the LFO as soon as we play a key. So if I go to maybe, square, I'm going to go to square. I'm going to go down on the pitch, and up on the pitch and down on the filter. And this is what we get. We get an on and off, pitch up and pitch down. So if this one is off, by default, the oscillator, the LFO, is constantly going behind the scenes. So sometimes when I play, it's going to be up, and sometimes it's going to be down because, it's an LFO. Sometimes it's up or down, depending on where the LFO is. Right? Maybe I'm going to go slower. So I'm playing it is up, and sometimes it's going to be down. So it's very unpredictable because the LFO doesn't care that you're pressing a key. It will not restart its cycle. So what the trigger will do, it will restart the cycle of the LFO. So every time that you play it, it's going to be always at the same position. Notice that it's always up, right? Up in pitch. It's never down. So again, this is how it works. You have another thing called the, maybe we're gonna go up, so we can get something a little bit more noticeable. I'm gonna be going to the LFO pan depth, and I'm gonna be going up. Notice what happens. So we have a way to pan it to the left and the right. Now, this is something useful. Much later, we can use the matrix to pan this, but this is just a variation of what we get right here. Alright, so I'm gonna go back to 0. Now the next one is going to be the phase position. We're now just gonna go to maybe a sine wave. And I'm gonna be re-triggering, so re-trigger is on. So as soon as I play it, right, it always starts from the same place. Now the precision, you have 3 different profiles, you don't have more. So if I play right here, it's gonna start from a part, in a position of the waveform. If I move it, it's going to shift the phase of the waveform. So now we start on a different place. So the pitch up, because we are doing pitch modulation, starts on a different place. If I go to the 1, if I go to the 2, starts on a different part of the phase. Now you all already have 4 different profiles, the 0, 1, 2, and 3. That's what you get. Right, so that's it. That's the LFO, what you can do with the default knobs, and then with the configuration controls that you have right there. Okay, so I'm going to go to pattern, I'm going to do shift, and I'm going to do init, so we can all start from the same spot. And if I go to the part number 1, I get the default, the default oscillator model and everything else. So a thing that you get, which is really cool, is, your effects, your reverb, chorus, and delay. Now, this is your effects chain. Now, on some other groove boxes or synthesizers or whatever you want to call it, you use your effects and you have slots that you can use. And this depends on the processing power of the unit. In this case, you have some dedicated right here. But the thing is that sometimes you want to use an EQ. Right? So you do have an EQ on the tone. We're going to talk about that one much later. But the thing is that it's going to use a slot just to use an EQ, and that sucks, right? Because maybe you want to use it for a different thing. Now, on each different tone, you have a dedicated EQ right there. So right now, again, I'm standing on the default one. So you can go to shift, hold the shift, and then go to the EQ, and you have a built-in EQ. So the EQ is pretty simple. You can just turn it on right here. By default is off. I'm going to turn it on. Right, and what you can do, you have a low gain, mid gain, and high gain. And again, you just decide how much you want to do with this knob. And with this one, you just go up and down. And with the 2, you just go up and down. So maybe I want to go down on the lows and then go up on the highs. And maybe it's just a little bit more up and, a little bit up on the mids. Something, again, very simple. Now, right here, if you keep going down, you have more options. So the low frequency is going to be where you're going to be boosting or cutting, or boosting or attenuating. Then on which frequency on the mids, and on which frequency on the high frequencies, right? So right there, you just can change whatever it is that you're trying to do, and just fine tune the frequency for the EQ. And you also have a Q for the mid one, so you can just make it narrow or just make it wide. And again, it's a super cool thing because you can EQ it and avoid a very simple EQ, and you're not occupying an effect slot. Okay, so now we need to talk about the matrix, and I'm doing a lot of focus on the screen because we are going to be using it. So we know that with the LFO, we can modulate pitch, filter, and amp, but with the matrix, we can select different sources and modulate other things that we cannot do, with the main panel controls. So I'm going to be going to pattern and making sure that we all start from the same empty pattern. All right, so that's it. I'm going to go there, and we get the default one. So to access the matrix, you need to do shift and then go to the matrix. So once you're there, what you get is 4 different slots, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the 4 slots accept or they have a source. So that source is going to be modulating other things which are going to be called destinations. For example, I'm standing on the slot number 5, and you can do all of this with the A and the B control. So I'm standing on the slot number 5. Now I need to select what is going to be modulating what. So if you scroll all of this, you will have a lot of options. It says mod 1, maybe it's just maybe a little bit, too small. Let me just, get it closer. There you go, a little bit better. So on this one, you can select the CC1 is going to be the mod wheel. So if you're connecting a keyboard, MIDI controller to this, and you have a mod wheel, the mod wheel is going to be modulating for destinations. Now you have a lot of options. You can use the CCs of whatever controller that you want to use, and then you have more options like, for example, the aftertouch, the bend, wheel. You can use velocity to modulate whatever you want. It's going to be, the key, just like we have right there at the top. Then you could use the LFO that we have right here. And, you have a lot of different sources, like the envelopes, the filter envelope, and the amp envelope. So for now, for simplicity, I'm going to be using the LFO, which is something that we already have. Now with the LFO, we know we can modulate the pitch, the filter, and the amp, right? Now the thing is that the LFO can, with the matrix, modulate all the things. So with the one knob, you're going to be selecting whatever is that you want to modulate. So let's say I want to modulate the pen, which is something that, we just simply cannot do it directly from the LFO. And then I'm going to be maybe selecting the resonance. Again, it's something that we cannot modulate by default, with default knobs that we get in the panel. And then we just need to decide how much of this we want to do. I'm going to be going to doing some panning and some resonance, and again, I'm just going randomly right here. So now if I play it, that is that we get a modulation. I'm going to maybe go all the way up on the sustain. We're modulating the resonance. We adjust the resonance a little bit more so we can really see it. And I'm going to go slower on the LFO. So we are modulating the resonance and the panning, so maybe I'm going to be going a little bit more aggressive. It's very mild in this case. There we go. Right. So that's it. You choose your source, and then you choose your destination, and, you can do some cool modulations. Now, let me go down in the sustain. So you have 4 different slots. Maybe this one is going to be using aftertouch or velocity, or I don't know, whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe this one is going to be doing, using the mod wheel. Right, so everything is back to default on the slot number 1. So when you're standing on the matrix right here and you're standing on the source, you can do enter just like this, and it's going to ask you, okay, so what is the source that you want to use? Now remember, it could be anything, could be an LFO, well, not really anything. Some of the things you cannot use, but the envelope, it's something that you can use. The LFO, if I do LFO, it's going to detect it, or maybe the, the amp envelope or the filter envelope. But in this case, it's just going to be maybe moving a knob from the LFO, and it's going to detect that it's the LFO that we want to use as a source. Once we are sure, we're going to do enter, and there you go. So you don't need to do it manually. Same thing goes right here. If I want to choose a destination, I'm going to be standing there. I'm going to be doing enter, and it's going to say that the LFO is going to modulate what? So I'm going to be maybe moving the resonance. So not everything can be modulated. Some of the things, remember, notice that the drive cannot be modulated. But, the resonance can. So once I select the resonance, I'm going to be doing enter, and there we go. You just don't need to do it manually. Now, there's a different way. You don't need to go back to default, but I'm going to be doing so I can show you how this works. Let me go back to off. So once we are standing on the mod matrix, you can do shift and matrix again, and then it's going to ask you for the source and destination. So it's going to do source and destination at the same time. So we need to select the source. I'm going to be moving the LFO. Once we do so, it's going to detect it and then move on to the first slot, which is going to be, the destination. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to select the resonance. Once we are done, it gets out of the screen. You don't need to do enter. You don't need to do exit. It's just going to do it for you and set it up. If I do the same thing, I'm going to do shift and then matrix. It will just, ask you, what is your source? You can change it. If I change it, it's gonna, of course, change the source. But if I do, again, LFO, it's gonna detect it. And now I want to, I don't know, modulate whatever, the cutoff, whatever. So once it's gonna, it's gonna detect it, it's going to add it to the list of the destinations. It's not going to erase the previous one. Right, okay, so you have 4 different sources, and on each source you have 4 different destinations. This is how it works. Now the mod matrix is super simple. Some of the features that we have on this device, on this synthesizer, are really dependent on the matrix. So we are gonna get back to the matrix in a few sections. Now, each tone that you have selected right here, each tone, you have a configuration, we have more configuration options. So I'm going to be standing on the part number 1. So we are standing on the tone number 1. I'm going to be doing shift, and then you need to go to the number 6. Notice it says tone. So this one will take you to the configuration of the part number 1. So some of the options that we have right here are options that we can already change. For example, right here on the pitch, the octave control, the level, we already have controls for this. But right here is like the main configuration, and we have more options. Now, some of the options are just, pretty simple. You have your level. You can go up and down in level with the A and the B. With this one, you can go up and down. Pretty simple. And this is the amp, pretty much. Now you have it's just way too loud. So right here you can go down in octave, or you can go up in octave. Pretty simple. Now then once you have your tune, right? And all of this again is just way too simple. Very simple to understand. Some of the options are not going to need to provide an explanation, just like this one. So since you are working with a synthesizer that tries to emulate some of the old vintage synthesizers, you get something called analog feel. So the analog feel will introduce inconsistencies with the pitch and volume, like an old analog synth. Now doing just a tiny little bit, it will be adding a little bit of inconsistency. Maybe you can go all the way up, to 127. That's going to be way too much. You're going to be going down maybe to 19. Now this is already a little bit inconsistent. And I'm going to be... If I keep going up, and I make a chord, notice that, again, it's just a little bit more inconsistency. I'm going to go down on the reverb. And on everything else as well. So if I go really up, all the way up, you're gonna really notice this. Right? It's super inconsistent. If I go all the way down again, not that inconsistent, right? So that's the analog feel. Now, if I keep going, moving forward, then it's gonna be poly or mono. You can, play chords or multiple keys at the same time because it's poly. But if I go to mono, you can do only one single key at a time. So then you have the legato and the portamento. We have 3 for portamento and 1 for legato. So by default, the legato, it's going to be off. I'm going to be turning this on now. The legato only works when you're working in mono. And for this one, I'm going to need to show you the keyboard. So when you're standing legato, this what will do, it will restart the envelopes. This is, how it works. So I'm going to be maybe adding some attack to the amp. I'm going to be playing this. And remember, we are standing in mono and legato, it's on. So if I play a key and I play a new one, notice that it's not restarting the envelope because I'm holding this one. Just pressing, it starts again. I'm going to be playing something else. Notice that it's not restarting this. So this is how legato works. It only works when we are not holding a key. If you're holding a key, everything else that we play will not restart. So I'm going to be turning it off. So now when I play a key, if I play a new key, it will restart the envelope. Now this is something very common with a lot of synthesizers. Now I'm going to be moving to the next one, the portamento, the legato is off. I'm going to use portamento. I'm going to be turning this on. So this is portamento. If I play a key, notice that it's kind of a gliding. I'm going to do no attack. And by default, when we play a key, is just doing that portamento, glide. So then you have your time, your porta time. Maybe you don't see it on the screen because it's just, maybe too small. But this is the time. If it's too much, if I go all the way to 0, just back to 0, we get nothing. But you can just decide how much is going to be gliding when you play a key. Right? So very simple. Now, then the other one, the porta mode, is not that simple. I mean, it's simple, but I need to provide an explanation. So I'm going to be doing some gliding. Now I'm going to be going to the porta mode, and you have normal and you have the legato one. So I'm going to be going to normal. So when we are standing on normal, it means that when I play it, it's going to be doing it, right? It's going to do that glide. Now the legato, it means that I need to hold the key for it to do that portamento. If I play a key, notice that is not doing that portamento. Now, if I play and hold and then I play a new one, then it's doing it because I'm holding a key. So if I hold it and then play different keys, it does that portamento. So again, it works just like the legato. You just need to hold the key and then it's going to do it. If you're not holding any other keys, it will not do it. Okay, some other options that you have right here is going to be the amp velocity sensitivity. So all this depends on what you want to do. The keys on this device are not velocity sensitive. I'm not going to connect a MIDI keyboard, but if you're using a MIDI keyboard, you can select or you can decide how much the velocity will affect the amp, right? So you set it up from here. So you have the same thing for the filter. It's going to be more sensitive if you go up in velocity right here, right? So right now it's 0, so it's not doing it. But if you want to affect the cutoff with the velocity, you can do so from here. Now, all of these options are options that you get on standard synthesizers. The thing is that you don't have room on the main panel to, add all of these controls. So, you can access here and decide it. Now, next, coming up next is going to be the bend. Right here, we don't have a bend, but if you're using a MIDI keyboard, you can decide how much up or how much down you go up in, the bend range. Now, by default, the envelope mode, it's ADSR. So you just get an ADSR envelope, which is, what we've been using. But you can change how this works. I can change it to an ADR. So it removes the sustain. So now the sustain is just not going to work right here because we are working with a, a different type of envelope. Again, this is not something that you get on all synthesizers, especially on analog synthesizers, but it's cool that you have the option. And last but not least, you have the category where this this patch, this tone will belong when you save it. Okay, so let's start talking about creating sequences. Now, we have 3 main ways of creating sequences. We can input and edit, we have step recording, and then we have live recording. Alright, so let's start with input and editing. First, I will need to stand on a pattern, and I'm gonna be doing shift, and then I'm gonna do init, so we can all start from the same place. I'm gonna do enter, and you get the default, sound that you get on the number 1. Alright, so, you get that default sound, and maybe I'm gonna do less release because the release is way too long. So, okay, so right here you have your 16 steps right here. So if you want to add something, you don't need to, start recording. You don't need to do anything. You just need to press and hold that step and then just add the notes that you want. So I'm going to go to step number 1. I'm going to press and hold it, and maybe I'm going to put my finger right there, my arm right there. And then I'm going to tap this. And notice that it's adding right here the C3 to the list of notes. Now, maybe I'm going to go to the second one. And on this one, I want a chord. So I'm going to be just creating whatever chord. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go right there, just press and hold. And then I'm just going to go and do a different chord. So this is how you can just add notes or just chords to the different steps, right? Now, if I wanted to go back, so this is the step, inputting and editing. So if I wanted to go back and edit some of the steps, you can. You just need to go and maybe to the number 1, for example. Right here, we have only one single thing. I'm going to be pressing and holding. It's going to show you right here at the bottom the notes that you have, you have right there. And at the top, it's going to give you the information, right? We're going to talk about this screen in a minute. But right here, I can maybe remove the step and maybe just replace it for a different thing, or I can just add more notes that, if we wanted to. And that's it, it's just gonna do the trick. If I'm gonna go right here, maybe I want to edit the other one. I'm gonna go to 2. Maybe I'm gonna edit this one. I'm just gonna be doing something like that. And then there you go. Now you can go to whatever steps and just, add whatever is that you want. Maybe here. Then we're gonna go there. Just do something dumb and quick and, something fast. There you go. And if I play it, we get it. It's just pretty simple to use. Right. Now, there's one thing you need to be aware. If I maybe go to the number 2 and I just tap it, it's going to delete whatever is inside. It's going to just kind of bring the step back to default. So if I tap it just quickly, just like that, and then I go back, notice that I get nothing. And it's because this deletes whatever information you have right there. So you need to be really careful when you do this. If you want to edit something, make sure that you press and hold. That will let you go to maybe this step and just edit the notes. The notes that you want, right? You can do it this way. But if you tap it again, it's just gonna delete it. Now, if you work at Roland and you see this video, right? This could be something that maybe you can enable or remove it in a different way, something that you can change. Because it's really easy just to remove the steps that you had right there. Maybe you really worked in some chords right here, and by mistake you just tap it and everything is gone. Now I'm gonna go to pattern and re-init everything. I'm gonna do enter, and I'm gonna go out, and we get the same thing than before. Let me do some less release. Now if I go right there, let's say on this one, and I add a chord, something like that, we have a chord, right? So if I delete it, if I do that, if I tap it and it goes away, if you never touched anything else, you have an undo feature. So you can do shift, and then you have right here, you have your undo on the number 12. So if you undo it, it's gonna give you back. Now the thing is that if you touch anything else, it removes it from memory and you cannot undo it. So again, if you really made a mistake by deleting something, by mistake, you just can quickly go to undo and get it back. So again, just like this, you just can create whatever sequence, maybe going to this step, then, create an arpeggio very quickly. Maybe you can skip the step and then, so on and on and on. Maybe I'm going to do something like that. And just, it's very simple to use, very simple to use. Right? So again, very simple. So later we're going to talk about a little bit more about this screen and how to edit the steps on a different fashion. We can do it in a more advanced way. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But this is one way of creating sequences. Okay, so I'm going to go to shift, for example. Right here, you can hold it. And right there on the 15, you have the clear. So since we are standing on the part number 1, I can do clear, and it's going to clear the sequence so that we get nothing. This is the way you clear the sequence. Now, if you repent this, you can do undo, and you're just going to get it back. All right, so in this case, I will go to shift, and I'm going to do clear. So I want to start with a clear pattern. So the next way of creating a sequence is going to be step recording. The usual, normal, recording that you get on any sequencer. So to do this, you need to select where you want to start recording. In this case, I'm going to start on the step number 1 because, it makes sense. So I'm going to press and hold. Once you're pressing and holding, you need to do start. So this will put you on the step recording mode. It will start recording on the step number 1. So every time that you play or you press a key, it's going to record that into that step. It's just a good all common step recording. So I can do 1, and as soon as I release the key, it's going to advance to the next step. And just like this, we can create whatever it is that we want, right? Now you can enter chords, but you need to do it in a more legato mode. Let's say I want to do a C. Well, I need to press and hold. Then I'm going to be pressing this one and release this one, but always I'm pressing, always one key. Then I'm going to go to this, and I'm going to go to this, and so on, and so on, and so on. So yeah, you can do something like that. When you release it, it's going to go to the next step, so you can just keep entering more different notes. So I'm going to be doing play, and there we have the chord right there. Right. Okay. I'm going to do shift and I'm going to clear again. And I'm going to be entering to the one, going to the one and doing start to do the step recording one more time. Now you can go forwards and backwards just by pressing a step. So right now, let's say I'm not step number 1. I'm going to be doing, just to see. But maybe I just don't want to record anything on this step. Well, what I can do, I can just go maybe to step number 3 and we skip that step. And maybe I just keep going right here and just, maybe go to the number 8 and just record something there and just maybe go to 14th and you know the drill. And if I do play, right? So you can go forwards and you can even go backwards if you wanted to. I'm going to go and clear everything. I'm going to do 1. I'm going to start recording and maybe I can go right here, but maybe if I've repented or maybe I record something, but I can go back, in time to the steps and record something else. This doesn't mean that you need to always start at some point and then, go in a straightforward fashion, right? Right. Now, if you're recording, you're standing on the step recording and you want to exit because you don't want to do anything else, you can do exit and it's gonna, go away. Or if you're recording and you want to play it back just by doing start, it will start playback and get you out of the step recording mode. Okay, so it just cannot get easier than that. This is the classic step recording, right? Now, then the other thing that you have is the live recording. So I'm going to go to shift and I'm going to do clear so we can start with a clear pattern and we have a nothing. Now, the thing is that you don't have a metronome, but you do actually. Now, if you go to the rhythm part, I'm going to go to shift and then go to rhythm. This is, the drums part. Now, there's one sound on the drum kit on, if you select it from here, we're going to talk about this later. You have a metronome click. Now, on this case, I'm going to be just standing on the kick. And again, we're going to talk about the rhythm part in a minute. But I have a, just a 4 in the floor. Just to get something to work with the part number 1. So how can we, live record? So the only thing we need to do is go to shift. And when we are standing in shift, we're going to be doing start. And it's just going to start doing the live record, right? So everything that you play is going to be recorded. This is, I don't know, a chord. And there you go. Super simple. You just shift and then start and then it goes out. Now, when you are recording live, maybe you just want to get out of the live recording mode and you don't want to stop the playback. Now, this is something very normal. Now, you can do exit and it will exit, but it will not stop, the playback. Now, if you're here again, if you do start, it's just going to exit, but it will stop the playback. Again, it's just completely up to you. Right. So that's it. You just go rec and you clear, you record, you live record whatever it is that you want. Okay, so let's just talk about advanced editing. I'm going to be starting with, just the default pattern. I'm going to go to shift and then doing init so I can reset the pattern and start over. Right, so we get the default thing. We already know this, you know the drill. So now what I want to do, I want to go to the advanced edit. Now you have a bunch of options. You have the tie notes, you can just tie. You have the velocity, you have the gate, and you have something called probability, and you have something called sub. First, let's just, get the tying notes out of the way, and then we're going to talk about everything else. So I'm going to be creating just, whatever. I'm going to go maybe right here, and I'm going to be adding a note. Now, what you can do, you can go to this note, and you can do the tie. So when you are holding, you're standing on the edit kind of a mode, and you press on the page tie, it's going to tie the note. So when I do so, notice that it goes to the number 2. So this means that this note, and if you take a look right there, maybe you don't see it, maybe we're going to, in a minute, it says tie. So the gate is tie. So it's going to tie the note. So now it's going to be that long, right? It's going to be a lot longer. And for this, I'm going to go sustain all the way up and release all the way down, right? So we can just really hear the length of the steps. So I can go maybe to the number 2 and just make it longer. Now it's going to be 3 steps long. And I can do this over and over again and just extend, and tie all the notes. Right? What happens if I want to do a chord? Well, it's just the same thing. I'm going to clear the sequence. I'm going to be doing a chord just like that. Maybe I'm going to be doing something like that. Right? So I'm going to be going here, and we can actually do this while we are entering the notes. I'm going to be holding this, entering the note, and then I'm going to be doing tie, and it's just going to do it, right? And I'm going to go there, I'm going to go there, I'm going to go there, there, and there, and we have a long chord. So just by, by doing this, you just can create different lengths for each, each step. So this is the first thing, is the tie. Now we need to talk about everything else that you get right here on the screen. Okay, so I'm going to go to Shift and I'm going to do clear. And now the focus is right here on the screen. Everything is going to happen right here. So when we record something, we can do maybe step recording just to do something really fast. Right, there we go. So I'm going to be doing start and we get, just a sequence. Pretty simple. Now the thing is that, again, when we go to this step and we want to edit, it's going to give us that screen. Now when I release it, it's going to go away. So that screen gives you a lot of information and you can edit it. Now the thing is that you need to hold it in order to move the knobs and access the different features. Notice that this is changing the velocity and this one is changing the gate. And it says right there, velocity and gate. So the number 2, if you're standing on this page, it's going to be the gate. If I go all the way up, maybe it's a little bit hard to see on the screen because, because of the brightness of the camera. If I go all the way up, it's going to be tying. So you can manually tie when you're holding. Now, the thing is that when we're standing right here, it sucks a little bit because you need to hold it. Right? You need to press the step and hold it. If you release it, it goes away. You can solve this by holding and then going up or, down on the arrows, and it's going to lock you to that screen. So now your hands are free and you can navigate the different positions. Maybe you can change, whatever it is that you want right here. If you want to remove notes, you can simply do it from the keyboard, right? Just remove them or add them right there. And they're going to be showing right there at the top. So again, it's completely up to you. The thing here is that you can change the velocity, something that you cannot do with the keyboard right here. You cannot do with the keyboard, and you can change the gate manually. Now, as you add more notes, it will get a little bit more complex because now you have a lot more things to select and, to rule because maybe you want to edit the velocity on that one, the gate. But you can, the main takeaway right here is that you can do it independently one by one, right? And that's, something really cool. For now, I'm just going to be working with one single note. It's going to be a little bit easier. So when you're locked on this mode, you can maybe go to step number 2 and you're locked into the advanced edit mode. And just by going to different steps, you can see what you're doing and you can edit all of this, right? So super cool. Now then the left and the right arrow will navigate you or let you navigate to the different pages. So this one is going to be all about velocity and gate. If I go to the right, you still see the note because it's going to be that one, right? But then you have something else. It says P and then it says S. Now P is probability. And then S is sub. So first I'm gonna talk about the probability. It's gonna be the note number 1. So probability is how likely this step or this note is going to play. So 100% all the way up is going to be it will always play, right? But if I go down on the probability, maybe I'm gonna say that this has 50% chance to play or not. It's just going to do that. When it reaches this step, it's going to say, okay, so it's going to be playing or not. It has 50 chance. And sometimes it's going to play and sometimes it's just not going to play. So you can just handle all of this from here. I'm going to be doing different probabilities so we can, see how this works or hear how this works. So if I go there, maybe nothing is going to be playing. So if I play it back, notice that some things are playing and sometimes they're just playing and sometimes they're not. Right? So just by doing this, you can add a little bit of variation to whatever it is that you're doing. Now, then you have the other thing. For this one, I'm gonna do clear and right here, just gonna do clear. So then you have the sub. I'm going to exit the screen and start with a clean pattern. I'm going to maybe add maybe one note. So this one, and it's just one note, right? Just one note. So I'm going to do hold, and then I'm going to lock that screen. And I'm going to go to this one. So this one, the sub is going to be like a re-trigger. Now, by default, it's going to be off. Now, the first option is going to be flam. So flam, it means that it will kind of trigger twice, one right after the next one. And it's a little bit weird, but you're gonna hear how it sounds. I'm gonna go to the release and make sure that we have no release and sustain all the way up. Now I'm gonna restart the sequence. I'm gonna clear everything so we have nothing. We are starting right from the beginning. I'm gonna make sure that we have no release for this, and we have the sustain all the way up. Now we are just clearing the part, the sequence, the pattern, not the part. So, it was already there. So we need to talk about the next thing. I'm gonna be adding one note, and I'm gonna go to the advanced edit, and we need to talk about the S. So this one is the sub, which is like a re-trigger, and you have different modes. Right now, we have a single note. If I play it, we just have a single note, right? So off means off. It's just going to be playing once. Now, the first option is going to be flam, and that's what it does. It's going to play it twice, one after the next one. Now, depends on your division, the subdivisions that you're using. Depends on, the tempo and everything else. This is going to be faster or not. But it's just doing that. It's just playing it twice, one after the other one on the same step. So it's like a re-trigger mode. Now, then you have more options. The next one is going to be 1/4. And if you really listen carefully, it's going to play it 4 times. Maybe if I, maybe go to the tempo, let me exit. And I'm going to go shift, and I'm going to go to the tempo and just make it maybe super slow. So there we go. Maybe I'm going to go really slow. There you go. So it's just playing it 4 times. All right. So I'm going to be maybe exiting, and I'm going to go back to the edit mode, and I'm going to stand right there. So we have the S, which is going to be 1/4. Now I'm going to be going to the next one. Maybe it's again a little bit hard to see on the screen. It's going to say 1/3. I'm going to be playing it, and you could assume it's just going to be playing it 3 times. Da, da, da. There you go. Just playing it 3 times. Now the next is going to be half, and it's going to do it twice. Now the thing is that by default, this is going to kind of let's say divide the step into 4 different steps, to 4 different grids. And this one, what it does is going to be playing it, first there's a space at the beginning, and then it plays it, again. So if I play it back, we just get it twice. Right? So we get it ta-da. So that's what it does. Now all these different modes, all of this depends on what you want to do. Now again, remember that by going to off, it's just going to be one single note. Now if you go to the right side, it's going to give you something else, which is the motion. We're going to talk about this in a minute, right? It's just pretty simple. But right here is where you edit the motion sequence. Now, one more thing, when we are standing on this mode, on this screen, we have access to add notes and remove notes. And it's going to just, again, lock you to that step and that screen. So maybe I'm standing on the number 1, right? So I want to go to the number 2 and I want to do something else. And notice that we have no information on the other steps, but still, I can access to that step and we have nothing, but I can, add it without holding and doing it in, legato mode. I just can add whatever I want and then just play it back and see what we get, right? So I can stay right here, do whatever it is that I need to do, and then just keep moving forward. And even, if we are standing right here on the step, we just can edit the notes, the velocity, while we are playing this back, right? So just, super simple. It's a little bit better, in my opinion, to the other mode, the one where we need to press and hold, because this takes one hand away from you, right? Just gonna occupy one hand. But this is a quick way, and this is a much more advanced way. This all depends on, what you want to do and what you think is just best for you. Okay, so let's cover motion recording or motion sequence. So this is pretty simple, right? I'm going to start with the default pattern, just like we always do. I'm going to go to init. And I'm going to be doing enter and then just, start, and we get absolutely nothing. So I'm going to be recording something. I'm going to do step recording. And I'm just going to be recording some notes with the default, just the default sounds that we get from the first one. Just, there we go. So I'm going to be playing this back and we get something like super simple. Right. So now what we can do motion recording. And motion recording is the action of recording something, some motion that we do right here. And motion recording got nothing to do with the demotion, if you're wondering. So maybe I want to record the cutoff doing something like this on the sequence. Now, these days, this is something pretty common that comes with all sequencers. You can do shift and you can do start. And when you do that, it's going to start recording. Now, my advice is to always make sure that this knob or whatever knob that you're going to try to move is on the right position. Because when it will start recording, it will always start recording from where you move this. So maybe I'm going to be doing the resonance, doing something like that. I'm going to do the cutoff filter just to make sure. We have some noise. I'm going to be doing the noise. And maybe, I don't know, we have the LFO filter. Maybe I can do something like that. So I'm going to make sure that all the knobs that I'm going to be moving are right what I want. So when I do shift and I start recording, this is going to start recording. Now I'm going to be going to these buttons and just, start moving. And that is just recorded the motion of the cutoff. I'm going to do the resonance. There I go. Now maybe I can do a little bit of noise. And then there I go, just recording it. Maybe the filter. I'm going to start. There I go. Now if you want to exit all this, you can do exit without stopping the playback. And it's just recording, the 4 things that we moved. Pretty straightforward. You have 4 different slots where you can, motion record or save, the motion sequence or recording that you're doing. Now, you cannot do more than 4. So in this case, we did cutoff, resonance, then noise, and then filter. Now, if I do a 5th, it's going to remove the first one that we, it's going to replace it with a new thing. If I maybe want to move, I don't know, maybe the release on the envelope, it's going to do it. It's going to record the sequence, but since it can do only 4, it will remove the first one that you recorded. And if you remember, it was the cutoff. So that one is going to be removed and replaced by, whatever comes next. All right, so, so you get your recording. Now we can edit all this. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Now, there are some things that you cannot motion sequence, and this is something you need to remember. It's going to be the 1, 2 knob. What else? You cannot do model. You cannot motion sequence that. You cannot do pitch because you're just, creating a sequence. What's the point? And then you have the timbre that you cannot. Now, another thing that you cannot do is modulate the type of the filter. You cannot do the LFO type, which is this knob. And you cannot modulate or just motion sequence the controller 1 and the controller 2. These are just controls that you cannot record into the motion. So what happens if you want to delete the motion or edit the motion? So you have a couple of ways. Now we already know that by pressing something and then going right here, we are locked into the the edit view. Now if I go to the next page, it's going to give me the probability and the sub. We already talked about this on the previous section. Now, if I do one more, it's gonna, let you know what I did with everything else. So on this one, we have the cutoff. Now, if I go to other ones, it recorded, something else for different steps. So on this one, we just get the cutoff. So right here, we just can go and, edit all of this. Now, the value is going to be how much you're going to be doing. And now we are doing this on a step-by-step, basis. This is just maybe it's not what you want, but this is one way of doing this. If you want to remove it, you can go all the way down. It's just gonna do nothing. If you go all the way up, you can, you alter this param manually. And you can do, one by one, go and edit the values for each of the motion sequences that you get right here. Pretty cool. Now this one will change what you're just, motion sequencing right here. So if I change it, it's going to change it for something else. Now the thing is that if I go right here, this one remembers on this step, but on the other one where it was, it's just a different thing, right? It's just a different thing. So I can change it to maybe some other thing, high pass filter, for example. And maybe I'm going to be doing, I don't know, oscillator, 3 level. It doesn't matter. It's going to be on the step number 4. And again, we just can maybe do the same thing on this one. Now, the main point right here is that you can go step by step and just edit whatever it is that you do in terms of motion. Now, what if you want to maybe delete the whole thing, delete the whole motion? Now you can do that from the utility. This option that you have right here, if I do shift and go to the utility, we have a bunch of options. So let's, cover this. That is that right there, one of the options is going to be clear motion. So if I play it back, we can hear the motion. So by doing enter is going to clear the motion. So that's it. Now the thing is that right here we have a bunch of other options. Let's talk about them on the next section. Right, so let's talk about the utility. We have that, sequence going on right here. It doesn't matter right now. Now we can do shift and go to utility. Right there, and you have a bunch of options. We already talked about the clearing motion. So by doing enter, we're going to be clearing the motion. Now the things that we have some other options right here. So I'm going to be going to maybe first to initialize pattern. Now you need to be careful with this one because this one will re-init the, the whole pattern. It's like us when we go to shift and then we do init. And, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to say, enter. And notice that we get the same screen, the same, are you sure to clear or initialize the pattern? I'm going to say yes. And, we get the same old thing when we initialize the pattern. It's just, a different way of doing shift and then doing init. Now, the next thing is something called, you get the randomized steps. So this will just give you randomized pitches. So we'll just create a random sequence. Now, even if you don't have anything, it's just going to do it for you. So I'm going to do enter, and it's just going to create a random. Notice that maybe you don't see it, the 15 and 16. So we get another 10. I'm going to do it again, and it's just going to create a random sequence. And if I keep tapping randomize, it's just going to give me something random. It doesn't have to make sense, right? So yeah, it's just going to be doing that. It's just going to be randomizing whatever it is that you have. All right. So let me just go back to the utility. So that's going to be the randomized steps, right? So again, if I want to clear the, maybe initialize the pattern, I'm going to do enter and initialize the pattern and just kaboom everything. So that's going to be the randomized steps. The clear motion, we already discussed the initialized pattern. We already know this. Now we have the duplicate steps part and then duplicate steps pattern. What the F is this? So all of this is about the pattern length. So we need to learn first how this works in order to use, these options. Okay, so we are starting with a default, sequence. I'm going to be doing some recording. I'm going to record something again, something dumb. There you go. Something really simple. And I'm going to be removing a little bit of the release because it's maybe too much on the default preset. So, okay, so how can we know how much, to maybe make the sequence 64 steps and how can we work with the pattern length? So it's just a little bit weird. Once you get it, it's just really simple, but it's, at the beginning, it's just, a little bit weird. So the first thing is going to be the page and the tie. So notice that right there, it says page. So when you press it, it's going to let you know right here at the top and it goes away. That's something that annoys me a little bit, that it goes away. So notice that it says page, you have 4 pages, right? And then it says how much steps you're using, on which page you're standing actually, and then how much steps you have, your sequence, your whole pattern on the part number 1 has, which is going to be in this case by default 16 steps. Now you have a couple of ways of modifying the steps and which one is the last step and everything else from here. But let's go to the utility. I'm going to go shift and then go to utility. So notice that we have 2 options. You have the duplicate steps that says part and the other one is going to be PTN. So pattern is going to be for the pattern. So for now, we're going to use the part 1 and then we're going to talk about the other one. It's just very simple. Now the part, when you do this and you have a 16 step sequence, for example, is going to grab those 16 steps where you have information, is going to copy them and is going to paste them on the next page. So you can have a 32, sequence, right? Now, then if you do it again, it's going to take not the last 16, it's going to take the whole sequence that you have, which is in this case 32, if you do it once, and then it's just going to make it 64. That's how it works. So I'm going to be working with the part because we are working with part number 1, and I'm just going to do enter 1 time. And it's going to say duplicate it right there at the top. I'm going to be exiting this. You don't need to, but I'm going to be exiting. Now I'm going to be pressing the page and the tie. And notice that now it changed a little bit, right? So we have 32 steps. And every time I press and I'm pressing, maybe you can You can hear that I'm pressing the page. When you press the page button, it's going to stand you on the first page, maybe on the next one, on the second page, and so on and so on. So you only have 4 different pages. Now, if I go back to the utility by doing Shift and the step 14, which is going to be the utility, I can do the same thing. I can go to duplicate steps. Now, since we have 32 steps, it's going to copy the 32 and then paste it, on the next 32, and it's going to be a total of 64 steps. I'm going to do Enter, and by doing Page and Tie, it's going to let you know that now you have 64 steps. And by pressing the page, it's going to let you go to the page 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now you have an alternative way. I'm going to go to Pattern, and I'm going to init the pattern, so we can start right from the scratch and have the default tone or default machine or whatever you want to call it. Now, when you go to the page and the tie, you can change it from here, right? So you are going to need to press and hold the page and the tie, and then you need to use the knob number 1, and this will just modify the step length, right? Notice it says step length, and we can go all the way to 64 or maybe do the in-betweens, maybe 47 steps or whatever it is that you want to do. You can even go less than, 16 steps, maybe make it 15 or something like that. So again, I'm going to make it 64 just to do something. And when I release this and I go back to the page, notice it says that now you have 64 steps, and you can toggle and navigate all the different pages. So I'm going to make it 16 steps, something simple, because I want to show you something else. I'm going to make it 16 steps. And what I want to do, I'm going to stand right on the right page. And I'm going to be doing some step recording, and I'm going to do something chromatically. Right? Something like that. Super simple. I'm going to be playing it, and we get something simple. Now, when I go to page and the tie, we know, and we hold it, right? We know that the A knob is going to modify the length. Now, if I do maybe 32 steps, remember that you just recorded as 16 steps. So this will not copy the steps that you created and paste it on the next page. Notice that we have nothing, right? We only have the 1 to 16, not the 17 to 32. So you need to copy them and just paste them manually. We're going to talk about that later, but this is how it works. Now for now, I'm just going to hold it and make it 16 steps. So this is what the A knob will do. So what the B knob is going to do. Okay, so it's going to give you a playback mode. So if I go all the way down, it's going to be forwards. So it means that the sequence starts right here, for example, and it moves forwards. Right? Makes sense. So if I go to the next one, it's going to be reverse. So it's just going to play back in reverse, as you can see. Pretty understandable, straightforward. I'm going to go to the next one. So the next one is forward and reverse. The playback is going to go forwards and then go back. Again, super understandable. Now then we have the IMV. And now here is where the confusing part starts. So this one, what it does, and for now I'm just going to stop it because it's just a little bit annoying. What this does is going to play the even first, and then the odd steps. So if you think about this, the even is going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, so on and so on. And then the odd ones are going to be the 1, the 3, the 5, the 7, and so on and so on and so on. So if I play it, that is how it goes like this. And it's because it's first the even, then the odd, even, odd, even, odd, even, odd, even, odd. That's how it works. Why it's called IMV? I don't know, but it's just the way it works. The next one is going to be the RND, which is random. And as you could guess, it's just random, right? Okay, so that's pretty much it, how you do it. You hold the page, you modify your length to whatever it is that you want. You have your playback modes. I'm going to stay on forwards. And then if you go to the utility, you can, copy and duplicate the steps from here. Now, remember that you have the part. So whenever you do part, it's going to be whatever you have on the part. Now, you might have some, a pattern or sequence or maybe a pattern, actually in this case, that has, all the different parts. You have things going on, and maybe you have some drums. So you have something on 16 steps, and you would like to copy and just paste, make it a 64 steps long. Well, that's going to be the pattern, right? It's going to copy whatever you have on the different parts on that sequence, And on the random one as well, it's just going to copy and paste it and extend the sequence for all the, all the different parts on the synthesizer. Okay, so let's go to the next section because we need to cover more options. We have more things going on when we work with patterns. Told you, once you learn how to create a sequence, then you have which is pretty simple, how you record it, then you have a bunch of other things that you can do. Okay, so back to a default nothing, and I guess at this point you know the drill. We get the default, default sound, gonna go loss on the release. So you have a lot more options when we talk about patterns. So when we are standing on a part, maybe part number 1, you can do shift, and then you go to pattern, and you have a bunch more options. Some of these options we know them because it's like the main configuration screen for the pattern, but some of these options we kind of already know. Now let me just record something really quick. I'm going to exit this. I'm going to stand right here because we do need something going on to hear what it's going on to the sequence when we make changes. All right, so that's it. That's going to be my sequence. Pretty simple. All right, so I'm going to do shift and I'm going to go to the pattern. Right, so the first option I'm going to be playing this back is going to be the step length. We already know this, right? How to do this with the page and the tie and the A knob, but you can do it from here. You can maybe go right there and make it, 31 steps long. This will not copy and paste, just like, we did with the utility, but you just can maybe trim to, maybe 4 different steps. Cool, right? Okay. Most of the options you get right here, we already know them. Now, this one is going to be the scale. This is something that we never discussed. So this is the division, the time division. So I'm going to be doing maybe 1/8, and everything is going to be slower. Right? It's going to be affecting the whole playback. So if I do 1/16, it's going to be 1/16. 32, so 30 seconds. And, we get into the triplet land. Right. Cool. So again, this is something very common that you get on pretty much all sequencers. Now, then you have the play mode. We already talked about this one, the reverse, the weird invert, right? Or inverse. I don't know how it's called. It's just inv. We already talk about this. Now, then you get the gate length offset. Now, so when we create steps, when we add the steps, we can go into edit mode, and we know that we can modify the gate. And, I can show you right now. If I can go right here, we know that the default gate is going to be 80. Now, I can change it for this step, and I can just, remove or just change the gate for the different steps, right? Just can make it longer or shorter and everything else. Maybe not a tie, but in this case, I'm going to maybe do it shorter. So we have different values for all, maybe different steps, right? This is something that you might have. So this is going to be the offset. You're going to be, for example, offsetting by, 9, 10, or you can go to negatives, right? So if you have, let's say, 10 right here, and then you do plus 10, now you have a total of 20 because you are offsetting. Originally, this was 10. Then you're doing plus 10 on the global, so it's going to be 20. Now, if you have 5, then it's going to be 15, and so on, and so on, and so on. So it's an offset. Now, then you have the shuffle. And this is something we discussed a little bit at the beginning. I'm going to be playing this. So we can do shuffle in a global way when we go to the tempo, right? Remember, we can do that? Now, right here, when you go to shuffle, you do it, but notice at the top, it says part 1. So this shuffle belongs to the part 1. So if you go to different parts, you might not have a shuffle. That's why when you go to the tempo, the shuffle is a shuffle offset and not, shuffle time. Right? So you can go positive or you can go negative. Really cool. And you can do this on all the different parts. Let me go no shuffle. So I'm going to be, maybe I'm going to record something with the filter. I'm just going to record something. It doesn't matter. Maybe I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to be doing something. Right. So we just have some motion sequence, right? So I'm going to exit and I'm going to go back to the pattern. So by default, when you record something on the motion sequence, how this is going to be applied behind the scenes is that it's going to smooth the changes of, when you move this, because the values are recorded to each different step. So maybe on this one you have one diff, maybe for the cutoff on the motion sequence, maybe for this one you have one, it's going to be all the way down, and this one is going to be all the way up. So how, this is going to be, how this is going to be working. So by default, it's going to smooth it behind the scenes. It's going to like a smooth transition up and down. And this is something, again, very common that we get on all the sequencers that can do motion sequence or motion recording. Now, what the F is the difference between auto, on, and off, right? So, well, there's a difference, and it's a little bit confusing. So off, of course, is going to be off. But there's no smoothing at all. Now, when you go to auto, what it does, it means that it does it to everything but the sliders and envelope knobs. Now, off is off, and then on, it means that it will apply that smooth to everything. Sliders, envelopes, and everything else. So this, that's how it works. Now, still, from here, you can say no motion recording. And you just, disable the motion recording. And it sounds that way because, I have adjusted the frequency. I'm going to adjust the resonance right here. Maybe you don't see it. But notice that there's no motion sequence. If I enable this, you can hear it clearly. Okay. So right here, you can just turn it off and on back again without losing the motion sequence that you did. Right? So this one, pretty simple. I'm going to play it and I'm going to do this. And notice what happens. So this is going to mute the part, right? So if I just turn it back on, you can do it from here. Now, we already talked about the mute, so that's just a much better way of doing this. So then you have the first step and the last step. So you have two options because this one is going to be the on or off, and I'm going to be turning the first and the last on so we can use them. So what this does is just pretty simple. It's just going to offset the starting of your pattern. So right now it starts on 1 and ends on 16, and we know this because that's our sequence. But maybe I just want to offset this, and notice that the 1 goes off right now. Let me just do it with this hand. I'm going to start maybe on the pattern on the step number 4. So now the pattern begins on the number 4, and if I go to the last, I can just, make it whatever I want. Notice that I can go really up, but maybe I just want to start on the 4 and make it, I don't know, a 9-step long, right? So this is why you get the first step and the last step. You just can, offset where you start and when you end. Still, if you don't like it, you can, make a variation and just turn it off and turn it back on and go back to whatever you had from before. Now, the next option is going to be the level and the panning, and all of this, it's something that you already have on the controls. This is going to be the level of the patch, pretty understandable, and then you have the panning all the way to the left, all the way to the right. I feel like I don't need to explain all of this, right? Now, let me just stop this. Now, then you have some other options within the pattern, right? So all of this, all of this belongs to the part, not to the pattern. The pattern is the whole damn thing. The part is going to be just this part. So if I go to the pattern, it's going to be the the level of the whole pattern, and it's talking about the whole damn thing. So it's like you can control, you have a different gain stage from here, but it's for the whole thing. All right. So what else? This one is something I'm not going to show you, but I'm just going to tell you what it does. So you have all, different parts. You have the 4 parts, and the 4 tone parts, and the rhythm part. So the synthesizer has a limited amount of voices. So you cannot use 60 voices on the part number 1 because the other parts will not work. You only have 60. Now, it lets you go part by part and allocate a fixed amount of voices that it can use. Now, by default, if all of this is just, 0 and then 60, it means that by the synthesizer, it's going to do it for you. So you just don't have to worry about it. But if you need, or you really need, for some part to really use a very specific amount of voices, well, then you can do it from here. All right, so that's pretty much it. So now we know how to create sequences, patterns, how to work with them, how to edit them, how to create tones, how to, use all the panel. And we know a lot of things right now. So I believe that at this point we just can dive into the different parts and, start creating music, because you know how to do it. You know how to do the tones and how to create the sequences and everything else. So now we need to discuss the rhythm part. And once we know how the rhythm part works, again, we will know pretty much everything. And we will still need to cover some other things, but there are more configuration, options like saving, copy pasting, using the arpeggiator and the effects section. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the rhythm part. I'm starting from a default patch. You already know how to do that. And I'm going to be doing shift and I'm going to stand on the rhythm part. And we're going to talk about this in a minute. So when you're standing on the rhythm part, this is pretty much the same as the other parts, but it's just a little bit different. So when you're standing here, every time that you play a key is going to be a different instrument. And when you create a sequence, of course, each instrument will get its own sequence. So if I'm gonna go to the kick and I want to record the 4 in the floor, I can just stand on that kick. I'm gonna go there, 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 and there. I'm just gonna play it back and we just get a 4 in the floor. Pretty simple. If I want to, do something like that, some snare, I can just go there and just do it. And just like that, you can create whatever is that you want. Maybe I'm gonna go there and just create something simple, right? Super simple and straightforward to use. You just select whatever instrument, whatever sound that belongs to your drum kit. And this is how, we work with the rhythm part. We work with kits. You select that sound, you add it to your sequence, and there you go. Now, still, there's a lot more. So if I stand maybe on the kick, on the screen, you have a bunch of options, and this will kind of let you know where you're standing and what you're using and everything else. So, for example, right there at the top, you get the name of the kit that you're using. And this is how we work with the rhythm parts. We work with kits, and the kits, they have, a bunch of sounds that belong to that kit. So right there, you have the kit number. It's going to be, in this case, the synthesized, kit, which is going to be the number 1. And then you have 2 layers. So this is how it works. When you play a sound, you can select the sound. In this case, it's going to be the first one, the 2, the cosine, and maybe the other one is going to be a different sound that you can select. We're gonna talk about this. I'm going to show you how all this works. I'm just giving you a quick overview. And then everything else has an FM that you can do. You have a blend control between the 2 parts that you can create, and you have a pitch envelope. And all of this is just for each instrument that you have, and each instrument might use different sounds or samples and, have different configurations of everything that you're doing right here. So when you're working maybe with the sound, each sound can have its own configuration of whatever it is that we have right here on the panel, right? So if I play something and I start filtering, notice I'm affecting this sound. This doesn't mean that I'm affecting the whole kit. This works per instrument. Now still, we can use this, but there are some other things that, we cannot use per, instrument. So we cannot use the high pass filter, that one is not going to work. We cannot use the instrument EQ, the tone EQ. This is just the tone EQ. We cannot use it for each instrument. We cannot use the keyboard, this one. Not available. Notice if I move it, it says not available right there at the top. So it's just going to let you know. We cannot use the drive, not available. And we cannot use the LFO. But everything else, it works. Now we're going to talk about how creating a sound, what this interface means. But first I'm going to show you how you work with kits, because this is how you create your kits and you load them and you use them. So by default, when you start a new patch, you're going to be standing on the synthesized kit. That is the default kit. And this one works just like the part 1, 2, and 3, and 4. If I want to change kits, I'm going to be starting playing. I'm going to go to sound. So when you go to sound, you have the presets for the kits. So right now we are sitting on that one. If I change it to something else, it's going to let me audition whatever is, whatever parts or instruments we have or sounds we have on the other kit. If I keep going, it's just going to let you, change it. So maybe I like this one. If I want to load it, I'm going to be doing enter. If I don't want it, I'm just going to do exit and go back to what I had from before. So again, I'm going to go maybe load the techno kit. I'm gonna load this one. I'm gonna do enter, and there you go. You just selected the new kit. Now, when you create a kit, you're gonna have a preset right here, but then these ones are your presets, but you have your, if I go to here, you have your init kit. So you can, create your own kits and store them. That's, the whole thing, the whole idea. Now still, let me just maybe go to, I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter. So if I go to the right, it's gonna take you to your init kit, which are your user kits that you can create and store them. So yeah, you can create them and store them, and you have a bunch of, of slots where you can store them. All right, so I'm gonna, do exit for now. So that's it, you just select, you go to the rhythm part, you select a kit, maybe one that you have created or one that you have available, and you just, start creating your sequence. Just like we did before, you just can select the part and just, add the different, sounds to the sequence. And everything works just the same as we've been doing on this guide, right? You just can maybe do some live recording. If I do shift and do start and I'm standing on this one, maybe I'm gonna go to that one, that one, that one, that one, and everything is just gonna be recorded. And to exit, you just go, to exit. So still, when you go to a step and you press and hold, it's gonna give you some information about what you're doing. And this is a little bit different from the other parts, right? If I'm gonna stand right here, I'm gonna, just do this, and it's gonna lock me to that step. Now remember that this one belongs to the C2, which is, the kick. And the only thing you can do right here is to control the velocity and then the gate. Now, if I go to the other side, you still have your probability and you have your sub, but all of this belongs to this note, not, you cannot do polyphonic right here. You can, but it's on different parts of the instrument. It's just not like the parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. But if you want to go to the kick, you can do subs and everything else, right? If you wanted to. If I go here, it's going to be the information. If I find something I did maybe on this step, there you go. So maybe if I go here, and maybe you notice, if I go to the number 2, it says that I'm using this, and I'm using this of the kit. So if I stand there, you can, alter the information of whatever it is that you're doing there, right? So in a way, all of this just works just like the, the melodic parts. And if you're just maybe watching this, maybe you want to go back on this guide and learn how the melodic parts work, and you're going to feel a lot better about this. So we have a sequence going, whatever sequence. What happens if we want to make it longer? Well, all of this just works exactly the same. We can go to the page and the tie, then hold it, and we can see the pages. Now we can make it a lot longer. This will extend the sequence, but it will not copy the steps, right? So right here, we just need to do it just like we did with the melodic parts. We need to go to shift and maybe go to the utility and just, maybe go to the part, just make it longer. And this is going to duplicate it and make it a 64 steps long, right? So it works exactly the same as the part 1, 2, and 3, and 4, the melodic parts. If I go to shift and I go to pattern, we have the same options than before. And again, I'm not going to explain all of this again because we already talked about this. Everything is just the same. So the only difference is how we create a sound on each instrument part, and how we create a sequence, and how we edit the sequence when we enter to that part. So the only difference is how we can go to maybe each instrument and create it right here, how we navigate the different kits, or how we can use the kits, and how we edit when we go to the edit mode. Okay, so I'm going to be standing on the kick, maybe this one, it doesn't matter. We need to talk about this. So how you create the sounds is by choosing two different sounds on each layer. And you have layer 1 and you have layer 2. So with this controls and all the buttons, you can just navigate between the two layers. So by tapping this, it's going to let you select the layer 1, or by tapping this, it's going to let you select the layer 2. Now you can still do this from here. Notice it says layer and then it says wave. So if I go here, it's going to go to layer 2 or layer 1. So again, how this works is that you have two layers and you can select a sound that, to assign a sound to that layer. For example, if I play the kick, I know that I have the kick and it's going to be that cosine wave. But if I change the wave, it's going to sound like something else. And notice that we get a lot of different sounds. And this is how it works. You just choose the sound you want to work with on that layer. And then you just maybe adjust your controls right here. And we're going to talk about this in a minute. And there you go. You have your drum sound. Now, you can create really cool sounds. How many samples or how many sounds you get? Well, you get a lot. If I go all the way up, you get 481 sounds. So it's just more than enough. Now, if you want a description of all the different sounds, all of this is in the manual and it's pretty long. But it's just there. So again, you just choose your layer. Maybe I'm gonna be maybe doing that one. So then what you can do, you can go maybe to the layer 2 and select a different sound. And then when you play it, it's going to kind of a I'm gonna choose that one. So it's gonna give you a blend of the layer number 1 sound and the layer number 2 sound, right? It's just, again, pretty simple. Now, the thing is that you have other things. Now, you just don't get 2 layers and you get to select the sound and that's it. You have a lot more control over this. So, for example, right now we know we have the layer 1 and the layer 2 and both have a sound. Remember, we can change 2 layers from here. So you have the layer 1 and the layer 2, you have a blend because both are playing at the same time. So the timbre is going to be the blend. Notice that we get a valence. So if I go all the way down, we just get the 1. And if I go all the way up, we just get the layer 2. And right at the middle, we just get a blend of both. But maybe I just want a little bit more of the 2 and less of the 1. Or maybe I want more of the 1 and less of the 2. So you can adjust this with the timbre knob. But now I'm just going to leave it right there, at the middle. We have the same thing for the 1 and the 2. So when you're standing on a layer, maybe I'm going to be going to that one, and maybe I'm going to stand for here, right now, right here. You can pitch or change the pitch of that sound, which is super cool. Now, when you do this, you can do shift and go and do sense. You can do this. Notice that it's doing it, and I'm gonna, put it in the middle, but shift and the pitch is gonna do sense, and this is gonna do semitones. So when you're standing right here in the layer number 1, this will change the pitch of the layer number 1. But if I go to the layer number 2 and just play it, notice that it's not changing the layer 2, it's just changing the layer 1. So to change the layer 2, you need to stand on the layer 2, and then it's just gonna change it. Right. So the next thing is going to be a little bit of frequency modulation, and there's going to be this control. So as soon as we maybe stand on the layer number 1 and I go up on this one, it's going to introduce frequency modulation. Maybe I'm going to go all the way to the layer number 1. So this is how much you're doing. So you can go down and do nothing if you wanted to. And then you have different profiles on the manual. On the Roland, it doesn't say what it's doing, but it says that it gives you different profiles for this frequency modulation. So the green one is going to be the first, and I'm going to go crazy so we can hear this. Notice that it's a little bit different, and this is called FXM color. And it's just different ways of FM. And this is what it says on the manual. It doesn't specify. So I'm not going to be guessing. Right. So again, you get to change the type of FM, how much you're doing with FM, if you're doing nothing or you're going all the way. And remember, by standing on the layer, then I'm going to be changing the FM for the number 2 and maybe the color as well. Right? So pretty simple. So that's pretty much it. You select your layers, you select your valence, you choose, you select your FM, if any, and then you have one more thing, which is going to be the pitch modulation. You have an envelope, this is the attack, this is the decay, and this is the depth. right? So if I go all the way down, we have no pitch modulation. So if I play it, notice that we don't get it. So this is going to be the depth, or how much of the envelope you're doing, and this is going to be your attack, and you're going to be this is going to be your decay. If I do something like this, it's going to pitch up and pitch down, right? It's just how slow it's going to go when we play a key, and then how slow it's going to go down. Now, if we want a really aggressive envelope, we go all the way up. If we want no pitch modulation, you just go all the way down and you get nothing. If you want just a little bit, you just need to select how much you want to do. All of this depends on the sounds and, whatever it is that you're trying to create right here. So that's it, this is how it works. It looks a little bit challenging, but it's just very simple. You just select your sound, select your layer, select whatever sound or sample you want to work with. You adjust your blend. You do a little bit of FM if you wanted to, and then if you want to do envelope and pitch modulation, you just do it. That's it. That's how it works. And then remember, again, that you have all of these controls to control, to shape whatever it is that you do right here, right? So what if we want to, save this? How we can save it? It's a little bit confusing and at the beginning, but once you get it, it's just very simple. But at the beginning, it's just a little bit confusing. That's my opinion. It's just, I'm trying to be honest. So how you save it? You go to Shift, and notice that right here, it says Write under the page and the tie. So when you go Shift and you go to Page and Tie, it's going to take you to the Write menu. Now notice that it's going to give you some options like overwrite, pattern and tone, then pattern, then part 1, part 2 tone. What the F is all of this? So how this works is that you can save different parts independently. So you can save the whole pattern, and it will not save the tones that you maybe just created. Maybe you just can save the pattern and the tone, or maybe just save the tone that you created on the part number 1, or maybe the part number 3, or maybe you just created a kit and you just want to save the kit. Well, then you just, go to the kit and you save it. So what I'm going to do, since I'm standing on a pattern, let me go there, I'm standing on this, of the bank number 8, we have nothing. I'm going to create a tiny little, sequence on all the different parts and the written parts. And I'm just going to use presets. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to use presets. And I'm not going to modify any of the knobs and any of the, the params that we get here. Okay, so, we have the part 1, the parts 2, and then we have the rhythm section. So what we want to do, we want to save the pattern and maybe, the performance. We want to save the whole performance. And notice that right here is going to let you know the part number 1 was edited. Remember, I did something and I used the preset, the default preset, but I changed the filter. So now, since I changed a property of that, preset, this becomes a new preset. Now, what you can do, you can disregard the changes and just save the pattern. And when you load the pattern, it's just going to load the pattern without the changes that I've made right here. This is, how it works. Now, let me just show you again. Let me just go to exit. I'm going to be playing this. I'm going to stand on the part number 1. And I'm just going to do something that we can recognize. Something like that. So it's really different from the, from the original preset. All right, so I'm going to do Shift. I'm going to do Page and Tie. And I'm going to be going to save the pattern. So when you, let me just maybe stop it first. So when you save the pattern, what happens is that you're going to be saving the pattern, but you lose everything that you did on the patterns and the tones. So you don't get a way to save it. So if I do enter, and it's going to let you know pattern right, edited tone will be cleared. So this is just telling you, dude, you're using a tone, right, on the part number 1. You made some edits, and you want to just save the pattern. When you save the pattern, you lose the edits of that tone. So if you do enter, it's going to save the pattern, whatever you want, maybe you can choose maybe a different part. I'm going to be saving it, whatever, it doesn't matter. We were standing on the 811. I'm going to be saving it right there. And you can rename the pattern. I don't want to. If you want it, you can do with these knobs. In this case, I'm just going to do, enter. and then just confirm, and it's just, writing the pattern. If I play it, notice how the part number 1 sounds. I've lost all the edits I did on the cutoff and the resonance. And this is how it works. It's a little bit confusing at first, but it's how it works. If I go to Shift and Page and Tie again to save it, it's letting you know, dude, you loaded a preset, a pattern. Nothing was edited, so you're not going to be saving anything. I'm going to be going out, and I'm going to be going to the part number 1. And I'm just going to be maybe changing the filter and changing the resonance. So when you save a pattern, this doesn't remember the changes. So if you want to keep the changes, you need to save whatever it is that you did on that preset as a tone. So you need to save it as a preset. That's how it works. So if I go to Shift and Page and Tie, it's gonna let you know, dude, you changed some things. You didn't change the pattern, but you changed the pattern tone. So you can just maybe save the tone, but you will not be saving the pattern. So in this case, if you want to change the pattern and the tone, you just can go to Pattern and Tone and then say Enter. And this is going to take you, to the menu of where you can store your tone. And all of this just, like saving the tone. If I want to go to save a tone right there, I need to do Enter. It's going to ask you the name and so on and so on. And you need just, just to do whatever. It doesn't matter. So that's my name. I'm going to do Enter. And now the tone, it's saved. And then it's going to be saving the pattern. I'm going to be saving the pattern. And again, it's going to be the same name. I'm going to do Enter and then confirm. And there you go. So now if I play it back, notice that we keep the changes. But the thing is that now we are using a new tone, which is a new preset that then later we can load within sounds. So the takeaway on this, how this works, and it's a little bit confusing at first because other, groove boxes or just maybe sequencers, they work on a different way. When you save the pattern, it remembers the changes. The thing is that you have a million things going on right here, and this is not how it works. When you save it, you need to save your tone, whatever it is that you created as a preset, and then when you save the pattern, it's going to be loading the presets that you saved. Now, following the same idea, if I go to Shift and go to, the right menu, if you edited the tone, you can just save the tone if you wanted to, as a preset. This is a way of doing this. The pattern, we already talked about this. Pattern and tone, we already talked about this. And then, again, you have the part number 2, part number 3. You can save the individual tones, the rhythm kits, right? If you created a kit, you can save it from here. And then you have the overwrite, which is pretty much the same as pattern and tone, but you will not be creating a new preset, a new tone. It's going to overwrite whatever it is that you did on the existing pattern. And this is very useful because let's say that, let me just give you an example. I'm going to go to the, the tone number, the part number 1. I'm going to make more edits, right? So this is my new preset. And I want to sound. I want it for it to sound like this. Now, when I go to Shift and I go to Page and Tie, and I want to save it. If I save this, I could go to Pattern and Tone, but this will create a new preset of the same thing I did. Maybe makes no sense. If you want to save a new patch, a new preset of the same thing, you can do it. Now, the thing is that I don't want to do this. I want to overwrite the existing preset I was using. So then you go to overwrite. I'm going to go there and it's just going to ask you, do you want to overwrite it? Yeah, it's going to overwrite the pattern and the tone. And there you go. So this is all this, the override is very useful when you already have something, going on right here. And then you just, want to commit it to memory. It's just a lot faster. Okay, so what happens? All right, so what happens if you want to copy paste? It looks weird. You need to go to Shift, hold the Shift, and then go to the 13. It's going to be copy. So when you go there, you get a menu just like this. And it looks very confusing. And I know, but it's not. It's just really not. So what you can do right here, you can copy and copy to the clipboard and then paste it on the same, screen. Now you can copy tones, you can copy steps, you can copy a lot of things. That's why you have a lot of options right there at the middle. And you can copy if you go up on the arrow, or you can paste if you go down in the arrow. Now don't worry, I'm going to just show you how this works. So if I go and do exit, we have the same pattern that we created on the previous section, right? So I'm going to be going again to the menu. And right here again, you have a bunch of options. This depends on what you're going to do. The left and the right are going to take you there. So maybe you want to copy a pattern. Let's do that. Now, if I do up, it's going to copy, and it says copied pattern. I can do it again. So now the copy, the pattern, the whole pattern is in memory. So I can go maybe to a different pattern and just paste it from the same interface. I'm going to be maybe going out. I'm going to be going maybe to the pattern number, 12. And I know this one, it's something I saved. I'm going to go to the number 12. I have nothing going on right here. But I can maybe go to the shift and then copy. And now remember, we have a pattern in memory. I just can go to pattern and just paste it. And there you go. We just can copy paste patterns. So that's how it works. You select what you want to do with the options at the middle, and then you want to copy or you want to paste. It's that easy. Super simple. All right, so let's do a little bit more. I'm going to be going to, the pattern that I have saved right here. Right? So I'm going to be standing there. And I'm going to go to the copy menu. So maybe now what I want to do, I want to copy a part. And I'm standing on the part number 1, which is going to be, the synth, to the arpeggio we have in the back. So I want to copy that. So I'm standing on that part. I'm going to be copying the part number 1. If you want to copy a different part, you just need to stand there. So once you have the that part copied, maybe you won't copy it. Maybe you want to go to a different part and just paste it. You can do this. Or again, if you want to maybe go to a different pattern, you can do so. And then once you're there, you can go back to the copy menu and you can stand on the same part if you wanted to, and then just paste it. There we go, down to paste. And if I play it, we just get it. Super simple. Now, can we do this with the same patterns? Yeah, of course we can. I'm going to go to the 11 and I'm going to stand right there. I'm going to be playing this. And I'm going to go to the part number 3. I know that I have nothing right here. It's just the same sound that before. I'm going to go to the copy paste menu. I know that the part number 1 is in memory, so I can paste it right here. And now we are just, pasting it to the part number 3. So, I'm going to need to stop it. There we go. I paste it. And there you go. So we have it twice. So I can maybe go to the part number 3 and just, select a different sound so we can have something else and not the same thing. Let's say I like this. Right, that's fine. Okay, so I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna go to exit and I'm gonna go back to the copy paste. So that's how you copy parts. What's next is going to be the step. Now, this one is a little bit different because you need to select what step you want to copy. Now, when you're standing there, you just can maybe stand on a step. And notice it says right there, step number 4, 6, so on and so on and so on. Now, you can still, select it from here that it is moving. So by doing this, you copy one single step. You can, copy. Is going to copy that step, and then maybe you can go to a different step and just paste it, or maybe to a different pattern, just paste it. Right? It works the same way. I believe I just don't need to show you because we already know how everything works, the pattern and the part and everything else. Now, then you have a multi-step because maybe just copying one single step makes no sense. So I'm going to go to the multi-step. Now, this one works a little bit different because you need to select a range. Now, when you do copy, it will ask you, what do you want to do? You want to start copy where? And it's going to be this knob. I want to start copying on maybe the step number 4. And I want to copy the 4 all the way to the number, 10, right? So when we are done, we just need to do enter. I'm going to go and do enter, and it's going to copy those steps. So maybe now we can just, go to a different pattern. and it's just going to be maybe standing right there. And I'm going to do shift, I'm going to do copy, and then I'm going to do paste. And there you go. It's going to be pasting it right here. Now, I was standing on the step number 1, so it's just going to paste it right there. It's not that it's just going to be pasting the same, the steps where we copied on the same position. No, it's just going to be pasting this where we selected. So if I go there and maybe select it right here, it's going to ask you where you want to paste it. So if I go to 1, it's going to be pasting it to 1, but maybe I just want to paste it on the number 4. And once we are done, we do enter, and there you go. That's it. It's that simple. So I've told you, this one looks a little bit funny, but it's very simple to use. Okay, so now we need to talk about the effects. Now, this is how it works. At the beginning, again, it's just a little bit confusing, but once you get it, it's super simple. So you have the part 1, 2, 3, 4, and the rhythm part. We all know that. So then each part can send an amount of signal to a reverb, a chorus, and a delay. And I know we know that, right? So we just know it. Now then you have 2 other things. You have the M effects, and then you have the tone M effects. So what the F is the difference? So the reverb, chorus, and delay are global ones. You don't get, one for each. You get one for the whole thing. Now, the M effects is a combination of different effects, or it could be a flanger, or it could be a chorus, or a distortion, compressor, whatever, you just name it. It could be whatever you want. And this one is like a master effects. It's going to go at the end of the chain. And this would, again, can be a compressor, a combination of different effects. And this is how we turn it on and we turn it off. Now, we're going to be talking about this section in a minute, but this is how it works. All the different tracks will send an amount of signal to the reverb, the chorus, and the delay. We decide how much we send and how the properties of each, individual effect. And then at the end, we have a master effects, which is going to be whatever it is that you select. Now then you have something that calls tone effects. So we know that all the different parts share the reverb, chorus, delay, and the M effects. They all go through there. But we don't have an individual, effects that we can just apply it maybe to the part number 1, or maybe a different effects that we can maybe go to the part number 3 or the rhythm part. We just don't get it. But we do. That's going to be the tone. And you get an M effects for each different tone. So yeah, you have your global effects, reverb, chorus, delay, and a multi-effects, and then you have one single tone for each different part or tones in this case. So I'm going to be going to the reverb. Now all of these 3 knobs that we have right here will work depending on where you're standing. If you're standing on the reverb, these ones are for the reverb. If you're standing on the chorus or tone or MFX or tone, all of them are just going to be working depending on where you're standing. So when you move them, you really need to be aware of where you are. So right now, I just have a default sound. They're going to be doing a little bit of release. So if I stand on the reverb, your main controls are going to be the control number 1 and the control number 2. Now, the number 1 is how much you're going to be sending to the reverb. I can do a lot, or I just can do nothing, right? So then the control number 2 is going to be a param that belongs to that reverb. If I play something, maybe this one is going to be, the time. I'm going to be sending a lot. Right, so you can control the decay of the reverb with the controller number 2. Now, each of the effects, chorus, maybe I'm going to be doing chorus if I want to send to the chorus. Notice that we can affect the rate in this case. So this control will change with each different, effects. Maybe I can send the delay, and this one is going to be the time. Right? So pretty simple. Now, I'm going to go all the way down on the sends on the chorus, and I'm just maybe going to stand on the reverb. So this knob only gives you one control over one single param, but when you're standing on an effects, you have a bunch of options. So by holding any of the effects is going to take you to the menu. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these options because they are a lot and they all change depending on what you're using. If I go to the chorus, the params are going to be completely different. And if I go to the delay, the params are going to be completely different. Now, another thing that you get with this, if I go to the reverb, is going to be maybe the type. So right now we are using maybe off, right? So it's going to be off. But we can use a version of a reverb, which is going to be, a model. We can use a hall. We can use a different hall. We have a different type of reverb. So we have a lot of different types. Maybe a shimmer reverb. We have a lot of different types of reverbs. Same thing is going to be happening for the chorus. You have a lot of different types of chorus. Then you have a delay, and you have a lot of different types of delays. So again, all of this is something that you will need to explore. It wouldn't make sense for me to, start explaining all of this because it would be just super long. The manual is like 210 pages. At least 110 pages are about the effects, and I'm not kidding. If you go to the manual, from 100 to 110 are just about the M effects and the effects options that you get right here in all the params. So yeah, I'm not going to go through this. You just go to the reverb, you just, get to the params and you just modify them. Super simple. Now, let's, talk about the M effects. So I'm not going to send anything, no chorus, no reverb, no nothing. Oh, and one, just a tiny little trick. Maybe I forgot to tell you. When you hold the exit, maybe let's say that on this one, on this patch, you want to know how much filter you're doing, the value. If you hold exit and you move this, it's going to tell you right there how much or the value. And if you move this, notice it's not changing. It's only changing if I'm moving it. But if I'm holding the exit, it's just going to tell you which value it's using without, changing the value. Maybe this is something I should have mentioned earlier. But, if I go to exit, this is going to happen the same. It's going to be the same for the effects. Maybe if I move the control number 1, it's going to tell you how much send you're doing or how much, maybe the target that you have right here or maybe the type, Let's, do nothing of reverb, no chorus, and no delay. And I want to stand on the M effects. So by default, the M effects is going to be nothing. You have nothing going on. Still, you can turn it off and on or off from here. So in this case, I'm just going to turn it on. So when you go to the type at the beginning, notice it says through right there. So through, it means you're doing pretty much nothing. I just altered this. You're doing nothing. It's going through. So if you change it to something, you're going to be using an equalizer. It's going to be on a different EQ, on a spectrum, an isolator, low boost, super filter. So you have a million options and it keeps scrolling. And this is why the manual is 220 pages long, because you have a million different types of effects. Yeah, it's just crazy, right? And on top of this, you have combinations. Overdrive going to a delay, overdrive going to a chorus, and so on, and so on, and so on. It's just super crazy. Now, I'm going to go all the way down to through. Now, remember that by tapping, pressing, holding the effects is going to take you to the menu. So if I go to the menu and, you stand on through, it's going to give you pretty much nothing. Now, when you're standing on the menu, you can change it from here, but you can, move the type of the effects. I'm doing so. And it's going to take you to maybe the filter. And now it's ordered by categories because it's crazy. You have a lot of different effects. So you can just, toggle the different categories if you wanted to. You have filter type of categories. Then you have phasers, flangers, chorus, modulation types, drives. You have compressors, limiters, of course. And then delays, and the list keeps going on. And then you have the combinations. So, really, really crazy. And all of this, again, is just going to give you whatever is that you want to do in this case. So I'm going to maybe go to... I'm gonna go to the auto. Why not? So this is what you get. It's an effects that goes at the end of the chain. And it will be applying an effects. Now, it's going to be your job going through maybe the different properties of the, of each effects and just, fine-tuning the options right here, the params. So if you're standing on the filter, maybe you can go here and just change it, to something else within the same category, right? So yeah, so this is how it works. It's just, great. Now, one more thing, I'm going to be going out. So you can turn it on and turn it off back, from here. We already know that. So right here is going to give, you can just, change the type from the effect. What am I using? I'm using a phaser. That's fine. So the control number 1 is going to control maybe a param that lives within the effects. And this one is going to control a different param. These ones are not like the reverb, chorus, and delay because this is not a synth. It's a master effects that sits at the end. So it's just a little bit different. And now you can just, control 2 properties instead of 1. On the other ones, you can do synth and then 1 single property. Now, one tiny little trick that you get on this, if I I'm going to go to the reverb, right? And I'm going to be holding it. So by default, this is going to be the time, right? So if I hold the effects, I'm just going to press and hold it, and I move this knob. Now, this is not changing the value. It's just kind of selecting a different target. In the case of reverb, you can do time, you can do level, and I guess that's it. Time and level, or no target. So let me just maybe go to the chorus, or maybe the delay. I'm going to press and hold the delay, and I'm just going to move the knob number 2. So with the delay, I'm going to go to the delay, and I'm just going to maybe do the delay. Maybe we get more options. Yeah. So if I press and hold and move this control, right, it's going to let you select a different target for this knob, for the control number 2. And it's no target, or maybe you want the delay, note, the feedback, and the level, and a bunch of other options, right? So again, this is what you can do when you're holding this property. You can assign whatever it is that you want control to the controller number 2. The controller number 1 will always be the synth. You cannot change that one. Now on the MFX, it's just pretty much the same thing. If I go to the MFX, I can select what I want to assign to this knob, and I can select a different assigned, I can assign it to a different property on this knob. And notice on the screen, it lets you know what the controller is controlling, right? Now you cannot control everything, but you can, you can control most of things. So what's the difference between the MFX that you get right here and the tone that you get right there? Well, it's the same thing. It's just completely the same thing. If I go to tone, now in tone, if I play it, we get nothing. We have no effects. Now, if I go to tone, it's going to let you know what you're using though. If you go all the way down, by default, it's going to be through, right? Which is, remember, same thing as MFX. It's just nothing. Now, as soon as you move the different, the different categories, it's the same as the MFX. So per part, per tone, you can do the same thing you're doing right here on the MFX, but you can choose individual effects for each different tone. So maybe on this one, it's going to be, I don't know, a filter, something like that. Notice that we get it. This is going to control something, whatever. Right, so this is going to be the tone number 1. Now, if I exit here again, this is the tone, and we are using a tone effects. Now, if I do shift and I go to the part number 2, this will be pretty much the same sound, but I can go to the tone effects and just do something else, maybe like a distortion or something like that. So we get a distortion. Now, if I change to the pattern number 1, we get the auto wah. So again, the tone is 1 effects per tone, right? That's why it says tone. Now, if you don't want to use it and you're just happy with your MFX, your reverb, your chorus, and your delay, you go all the way down until it says through, and it's just, you're setting it back to nothing. Right, so that's, the effects. It's pretty simple. The thing is that it's super complex because you have a million options. Now, if you ask me, I much prefer to have all the options available and not just have a reverb, a chorus, or a delay, and that's it, right? It's just nice to have an effects, a master effects, and then, an MFX for each of the tones is super versatile. And, the fact that you have so much options right here, it makes whatever sound source that you're creating right here amazing. You just have a lot of possibilities. So I believe, the rhythm part and the effects of this unit is just, the best of this, the whole synthesizer. All right, so we are pretty much done. It was a long video. I'm going to be kind of wrapping this up. And remember, I've recorded a different video talking about the different oscillators. And I'm going to be covering one more thing that is going to be called the visual arpeggio. I'm going to be covering that there. But I'm going to be talking about the D motion right now and the main menu. I'm not going to deep dive into this. I'm just going to show you where it is and what it is. So if you are standing on whatever pattern, it doesn't matter. If you do shift, the number 16 is going to say menu. If you go there, you're going to find a bunch of options. Now, all of this is going to be, the main configuration of the whole synthesizer, right? And you have, again, a lot of options. You can go to system settings to enter. You're going to need to enter right there. And the system settings is going to be everything about maybe your USB configuration, your MIDI configuration, your global tune, maybe the intensity of the LCD screen. Notice that I have a little bit less. I can just change it, right? Just like maybe something like that. I'm going to leave it in 3, maybe 2 was enough. And that's fine. So the tempo and everything else, the MIDI controls and everything else. So you have other options like, the system EQ and comp. The visual arpeggio is something I'm going to be covering on the oscillators video I just told you about. You can do a factory reset and the information of the firmware and everything else. So this section is like the, main configuration of your whole synthesizer. It's not about, a pattern or a tone. It's the whole thing. Okay, so I'm going to show you how the D motion works. It's a pretty silly thing, just like the visual arpeggio. It's super simple, and it's just, I think they added this to compensate for the lack of mod wheels and XY controllers. So let me just show you. First, I'm going to be going to the matrix, and I'm going to tell you why in a bit. I'm going to go to the matrix, and when we go to the matrix, we have the 4 slots. We already know how this works, and by default, notice that the CMOD, maybe let me just adjust the camera. By default, the slot number 3, it's using the CC1. This is going to be the mod wheel, and it's modulating the pitch. Now, the slot number 4 is using the aftertouch, and what's modulating is going to be the cutoff, right? So this knob is going to be doing that knob. So this means that, with the mod wheel, and if you connect something at the back of this unit, the mod wheel and the aftertouch will do some modulation. And this is important for D motion, believe it or not. Okay, so again, the mod wheel, it's pitch, and the aftertouch is going to be cutoff. So I'm going to be going out of this, and I'm going to be going to the D motion. Now, first, maybe I'm going to be recording something simple that we can. Right, so that's it. So it's going to be a dumb arpeggio. There, okay. So I'm going to be exiting. Right, so that's going to be the arpeggio. Pretty simple. Now I'm going to go to D motion. So I'm going to go there. And notice what happens. So right now it's a circle and it's standing right here at center. So you get kind of an XY view. And all of this is going to modulate something that you're doing on the matrix. And this is why, notice it says aftertouch. Remember the aftertouch, it's modulating the filter. And then the Y is going to be, a different modulation. Now you can change whatever you're doing right here. So this mod is going to be the mod wheel, right? So you can do maybe off, it's mod wheel. You can do pitch, whatever. It's going to be the pitch bend. So in this case, it's going to be aftertouch, mod wheel, or pitch bend. Now I'm going to leave it on mod because it's what we have on the matrix. So this works. I'm going to be doing the I'm going to be starting, playing the pattern. How this works, and I know it's super silly. This will detect when I move the synthesizer, when I just tilt it. So if I move this and tilt it, it's going to do something on the X and the Y. And there you see the ring. So yeah, this is what's going on right now. It's just detecting I'm tilting it. And it's using the XY with the aftertouch in the mod wheel to modulate whatever is that you have on the matrix. Now, I know that they added this to compensate the lack of mod wheel and maybe XY controller that we have on this synthesizer. Okay, so that's it. It was a long guide, but it's a pretty cool device, super useful. You know, all the different parts, you can get a million type of sounds, and the rhythm part in the effects section is just a fantastic thing. This is the end of this guide, but go to the cards or the links in the description and you will find a different video just talking about the different oscillators, all the oscillator models that we get. You're going to explain one by one how they work. And I'm going to be talking about the visual arpeggio, which is kind of a variation of the D-motion. And I want to expand it a little bit more. And this video is just, way too long already. All right, so if you learned something on this one and you find this, useful, remember to like and subscribe. And if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee just to say thanks, you can. Go to the links in the description. You have links for PayPal, you have Google's YouTube thanks, and you have Patreon. Maybe you can be a 1-month patron and just buy me a coffee that way. Right, so see you on the next one.